The headlines today, the Department of Health says Jeremy Hunt would not be doing his job if he didn't speak to the bosses of hospitals struggling to meet A&E targets. The head of the Care Quality Commission told a newspaper that the Health Secretary was crazy for telephoning hospitals about the failings. Nigella Lawson has said her experience of appearing as a witness at the trial of her two former assistants was deeply disturbing. She issued a statement after Elisabetta and Francesca Grillo were cleared of defrauding her and her former husband, Charles Saatchi. Geoffrey Robertson, a human rights barrister, says he believes witnesses should be afforded greater protection if they give evidence in a trial.
She was accused of being a habitual drug taker and a drug addict and so on. She should have been entitled, I think, to be represented, to argue that shouldn't have been permitted, or if it was, to call evidence to show that she was not guilty.
And millions of people are expected to be on the move today as part of the Great Christmas Getaway. We're being warned it's likely to put extra pressure on roads, rail services and airports. On the roads, the Highways Agency has either completed or suspended roadworks at a number of sites on England's motorways and major A roads. Matt Dalloway from the RAC's headquarters in Warsaw told us he's hoping there'll be fewer problems than in previous years.
People are very keen to see their friends and family at Christmas. We are expecting nationwide traffic volumes to be about 13 million cars on the road at some point, which is significant. We are being blessed by warmer than usual temperatures, which means from a breakdown point of view, we're not in the same place we were this time last year. And if you remember, we had snow on the ground, which caused a lot of disruption.
Football and Aston Villa head to Stoke City as they seek to improve on a record that's seen them win just 2 of their last 10 matches. West Bromwich Albion go into battle under caretaker boss Keith Downing for the first time this afternoon, hosting Hull City at the Hawthorns. Birmingham City welcome Nottingham Forest to St Andrews, hoping to stretch their 6-game unbeaten run still further. Wolves hope to recover from successive defeats in League One when they visit Rotherham this afternoon. And Walsall face Carlisle at the Bankside Stadium, with the Saddlers lying 4 points outside the playoff places in League One. And a look at the weather. A windy day, some gales around later and heavy showers this evening as well. Highs of 12 degrees Celsius, 54 degrees Fahrenheit. Tonight, heavy showers around this evening, which will move to give a largely dry but very windy night. Lows of 3 degrees Celsius, 37 degrees Fahrenheit. BBC WM 95.6 News. There's more online at bbc.co.uk/WM.
The Voice. The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
They have kids and they want somebody else to keep them.
Social services shouldn't exist.
I know quite a few people that have had pay cuts in their wages just to hang on to their job.
Iain Lee, Saturdays
9 till 12.
BBC WM 95.6.
Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC WM 95.6. Lots coming up on the show this morning, including, do you feel sorry for Nigella Lawson? She's had her dirty laundry rushed and pushed through the newspapers this week. Do you feel sorry for her at all? You can give us a call on that. We're also asking, are you proud of your accent? Or do you feel a little bit embarrassed about it? Maybe if you're going for a job interview or something like that. Do you feel a little bit awkward? But the thing I want to kick off with this morning is, should drug offenders and criminals be allowed to be magistrates? How would you feel if you get up in front of some magistrates and it turns out that maybe 1 or 2 of them are drug offenders, or they've done a little bit of time for being in prison? Would you feel uncomfortable with that? Would you be questioning their integrity in the slightest? Give me a call on this, please. 08453 009956. You can text as well, 81333. Start your text WM. Or you can send me an email, iain.lee@bbc.co.uk.
Have your say.
Across the West Midlands, call 08453 009956.
BBC WM 95.6.
Thank you very much. I'm glad Molly Green stayed behind a little bit after school today to sort things out for me. It's my first day pressing the buttons. It's my first day being allowed to press the buttons. I feel all grown up. I also feel like an idiot because I pressed the wrong button. It's sorted now, dear listener. Nothing for you to worry about in the slightest. So how would you feel? Drug offenders and criminals, should they be allowed to be magistrates? It's an interesting one, this. Really keen to get your thoughts. Maybe you are a magistrate. If you are a magistrate, do give me a call. If you've been in front of a magistrate, Also keen to hear what you think about this morning. I have had cause to be in a magistrate's court, and I have seen what they do, and I am amazed at what some of them do, and also some of them, let's be honest, some of them are too old and don't have a clue about the real world and what's going on in the real world. So having drug offenders and criminals as magistrates, would that give them a better sense of understanding? 08453 009956, if you would please, this morning. Give me your calls and your thoughts on this. Should drug offenders and criminals be allowed to be magistrates? The reason we're talking about this is because a think tank has called for more reformed drug addicts and ex-offenders to sit as magistrates. The right-wing group Policy Exchange suggests the move could help individuals to live a legal and clean life with the support of the courts and mentoring of a judge. Well, would you trust our legal system if criminals were encouraged to be magistrates? At first listen, it sounds like a load of old hokum, doesn't it? A load of old nonsense. Why would we want these people sitting on a bench, sentencing people, passing judgment on people? But if you think about it, they've got a real understanding, haven't they, of what the people who are stood in front of them have been through and what might work in terms of punishment and rehabilitation. They could take away your driving licence, they could issue a hefty fine, they could even send you to jail. Now, if they've been to jail, or if they have abused drugs and been addicted to drugs, if they have stolen, they will know the reasons why they've done that. They'll also know what worked for them, what helped get them on the straight and narrow. 08453 009956. Criminals and drug users as magistrates. Would it work? Joined now by Richard Monkhouse, who is the chairman of the Magistrates Association. Good morning to you, Richard.
Good morning.
Richard, what do you think? Drug abusers, criminals as magistrates, would it work?
I think there's two sides to this. One is the principle of it, and I think there's nothing wrong with the principle of it, provided that they are reformed criminals. They've led a clean life for a period of time. That's not up to us to decide. But it certainly would add an element of reality, particularly where we're dealing with cases that are drugs-related, substance abuse-related. There's also another way that we could use them, and that is in the administration of sentences. They don't have to become magistrates, but I think there's no principal objection. There's a practical problem, and that is that we used to have about 30,000 magistrates, and now there are about 22,500. The number is declining because the amount of work coming through the courts is declining, and it declined quite rapidly. So we're not in a position to recruit anybody. And I think we are aware that every year, because of that, we're all getting 1 year older. And the mix, the diversity that should be on the bench is not being replaced. It's not being replenished because we're not recruiting. And I think we'd love to see a much wider diversity of people coming on to be magistrates. Richard, and why not reformed criminals?
Why has there been a decline?
Because the amount of work that's coming through the courts has declined.
Why is there less work going through the courts?
Well, we are told, haven't you heard the news, that the crime is falling?
Oh, yes, I have heard that.
There's been, over the last 4 or 5 years, there's been quite a lot of cases being dealt with out of court. And that looks like it might be resolved because the government is looking at reviewing the out-of-court disposal scenario, people being given cautions for serious offences. That's probably not going to happen. But all of that has caused the amount of work coming through the courts to fall quite significantly. We have courts that are closing. We have court staff that are being laid off, and because of that, we don't need as many magistrates.
You're right about the diversity of magistrates. The only time I've had cause to be in a magistrate's court was when my mum had been robbed by some of her carers, and I spent the day in magistrate's court. And boy, oh boy, it's fascinating. But it was three white middle-class people in their mid to late 50s were acting as magistrates. It's not particularly diverse, is it?
Well, that's true. But if you look at the whole number of magistrates, we have probably something like 9 to 10% who are from ethnic minorities, which reflects the national population. It might be different in different areas. But there's a parity between genders. That's 50-50. We are older, partly because there's no stop on people. You can become a magistrate at 18, but there's no rush for 18-year-olds or 20-year-olds or even 30-year-olds to become magistrates, because they have their lives to lead, they have other things to do, they have other priorities. And it's only when you get a little bit later that you get people saying, actually, this is something I think I would like to do. We would like to see that change. We would like to see more people from all sorts of backgrounds and all sorts of classes coming into the magistracy. We think that would make it better.
The Ministry of Justice says that magistrates must be people of integrity. Drug abusers, criminals, people of integrity?
Well, ex-drug abusers, there were people, I won't name anybody, but there were people who were stopped from becoming police and crime commissioners because they'd committed crimes at the age of 14, 15, 16, had been cautioned, maybe he'd got a criminal record.
Well, Simon Weston famously was one, wasn't he?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yes, no, of course.
That's who I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Now, should what that person did when they were 14, 15 or 16 preclude them from becoming magistrates or any other particular role later in life? I think if people reform, and particularly if people reform, I think that shows quite a lot of integrity for people to change their lives, to understand what it is that's causing them to offend, and to stop it. That's actually quite strong. That's actually quite powerful. So I think there is room for people from all sorts of backgrounds and from all sorts of lifestyles to be magistrates. After all, the most people we deal with are generally, in the adult court, are generally between 18 and 30.
There will be some people listening, Richard, who will be thinking, hang on a minute, someone who's been to prison for taking drugs or supplying drugs, really, can they ever change? Do we want to reward them later on in life by letting them sit in a position of power?
Well, I think you have to remember also that there's quite a strenuous selection process. There needs to be evidence that people have changed, and you don't just take people's word for it. I know when I applied to be a magistrate several years ago, I waited 18 months. There was a CRB check done on me. There were checks done on my background to make sure that I was who I said I was, and that my lifestyle was compatible with that of being somebody who was passing sentence on other people. You have to have that. You have to have that integrity. But to say that somebody who offended when they were younger doesn't have that when they're 50 or 60 or even younger, I think is making a huge leap about how people can change. I know that people can change. I see people in court who we've dealt with who do change. Now, you're not going to immediately say to them, OK, you've finished a sentence, now you can be a magistrate. There has to be a little bit more, and it depends what they've done, how long ago they did it, how their lifestyle has changed. But it shouldn't necessarily be an automatic ban, and in fact it isn't. There would be no change to the law required. Ex-offenders can currently become magistrates. Now, you have to assess what it is they've done and who it is they are and how long ago it was.
Richard, I appreciate your time this morning. It's Richard Monkhouse, chairman of the Magistrates Association. What do you think? How would you feel if the example I set, we went to court because my mum had a load of money nicked off her by her carers? That's a story for a different day, let me tell you. How do you feel? You're in court with your mum because she's had something stolen from her. Then you find out that one of the magistrates has also robbed somebody a few years ago, and another one of the magistrates sat in front of you making decisions, passing judgment, used to be a drug addict. Would you think less of them? Would you think less of their decision? Or would you respect their decision more because they have walked that line? They have lived that life. They know what it took to get them clean, to get them on the straight and narrow. I'm really keen to get your thoughts on this, particularly if you've had experience within the magistrates' court system. 08 453 00 9956. Drug abusers, ex-offenders as magistrates. Could it work? This is Iain Lee on BBC WM. It's 9:16. Let's get the latest travel. And with the travel this morning, it's Liz Saul. Liz.
Good morning, Ian. Thank you very much. Just to tell you an update on the A426 by junction 1 of the M6. Police have now closed the carriage way in both directions to recover the vehicle that went off the road and ended up in a nearby hedge on the roundabout by the motorway. Traffic's still fairly light in the area, but if you're heading down the M6 and off at junction 1, just be mindful of that. In Brockton, Pool Lane is still shut in both directions at Brockton Road. A vehicle has overturned there. It overturned earlier this morning, and emergency services are still at the scene. Spots of congestion are starting to build through Redditch is heavy on the Warwick Highway both ways around Battens Drive. Particularly slow, it seems, heading from Headless Cross. And the A38 as you head away towards Worcester is also looking busy in places now. Slow at the Burnt Tree traffic lights both ways. Not too bad as you head into Birmingham currently, though obviously expect a lot of extra shopping traffic around the town and city centres today. And also we expect the motorways to be a little bit busy later on as well. Your match day travel sees a short journey up the M6. If you're a Villa fan heading to Stoke, no problems reported on the M6. Wolves fans, you're going slightly further afield to Rotherham. It's a 2-hour journey suggested on the A38 and then on to the M1. That all seems to be okay. If you can update us, 08453 002288.
Liz, thank you very much.
We wish you a Merry Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho.
The best thing about Christmas is have a big turkey dinner or chicken or beef, I don't know. The whole atmosphere of it's really exciting. In my opinion, I think I've been a very good girl this year. Being a little bit patient with my sister, even though she's very annoying. No, I am not. Sometimes I admit I've been a teeny bit shouty. Everyone makes mistakes, like the Queen. She makes mistakes sometimes. Happy Christmas from BBC WM 95.6.
Ah, man, it's Merry Christmas. It's Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. It's one of my bugbears. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, OK? Let's just agree to that and we'll be fine. So, drug users, criminals, as magistrates. The more I think about it, the more this makes perfect sense. These people have lived a life. They've used drugs. They've stolen. They've robbed. They've burglarised. Is that a word? No. They're the perfect people to be magistrates, aren't they? Because they know and understand the reasons why people commit these crimes. They have empathy in its purest sense. They also know what it took to get them on the straight and narrow, what it took to get them off drugs, what it took to stop them offending. 08453 009956. The more I think about this, the clearer it becomes to me that, yes, we should be encouraging former naughty people to come and act as magistrates, to pass judgment, to pass sentence, to help rehabilitate other offenders. It's hard to disagree with, isn't it, really? Although maybe you're worried that they might be a bit more lenient on someone who's been dealing a bit of weed or someone who's been caught using cocaine. They might be more lenient on someone who's robbed an old lady's house. 81333, start your text WM or give me a call. This is the best way to do this, by the way, dear listener. I don't mind reading out your texts and your emails, but I prefer it when you call in and we have a little bit of a head-to-head. 08453 009956. Mohammed's in Edgbaston. Good morning, Mohammed.
I'm just listening to you there and having a little giggle because you think it's a good thing. I'm not so sure about that. I think there's enough good people out there anyway who've never committed crimes. Why aren't they going after them to be magistrates instead of trying to say, what's this line we're going down? We want to give people a vote in prison. We want now to give them magistrate jobs and what else do we want to give them?
But the people we'd be giving it to, they wouldn't be people who are serving in prison. They'd be people who committed the crime, served their time.
I know that, yeah.
And are back out in the real world. Surely they're the perfect people to pass judgment, aren't they?
Well, I tell you what, I've been in the magistrates' court I don't know. I remember at one time, they put a sheet of paper in front of me and there was about 50 charges on it. They said, "Is that you?" And I said, "Yeah, it is, mate. It must be me if you got that charge."
Well, what had you done?
And that was drunkenness.
Right.
I was in court so many times for drunkenness and drunken behaviour at football matches, drunken behaviour in town, drunken behaviour here, there and everywhere, And in them days, you did get fined heavily, And I just paid the fine. And went away, and then one day I just stood up and I said to the magistrate, I says, what do you keep bringing me back here for? I says, you're flipping balmy, you la. And he just looked at me in astoundment, like, I says, you fine me £100, then next week you'll do the same again, you'll fine me £100. Is that your solution to my drink problem? So you might be right on that respect.
Well, then,
yes.
Mohammed, you just put forward, you've just backed up my argument. Those people that were acting as magistrates then didn't know how to deal with your drunkenness. Now, of course, fining a drunk or an alcoholic or a heavy boozer or whatever, that's not going to stop them doing it, is it? Whereas if you had a former alcoholic or a former addict working as a magistrate, they might be able to have that empathy with you.
But at the same time, I had a brother-in-law at the time. He's not my brother-in-law now because my sister divorced him. He was very totally left-wing type person, and he was a bad person all round, And he was called for jury service, and he said, if ever I get called up on the jury service, and he did, he said, whatever case comes in front of me, I'm going to find them not guilty. I don't care what they've done. Because he was that left-wing and he didn't agree with the country system of things and all that,
Well, yeah, but he wouldn't be allowed to be a magistrate. He would be vetted and would go through...
Yeah, but you wouldn't know, would you? Because, he could pull the wool over anybody's eyes. That guy could. But then, Mohammed, anybody could do that. An anarchist could do that. A fascist could do that.
Anybody could do that and become a magistrate. It doesn't mean that all drug users and all former criminals are going to be idiots like your ex-brother-in-law.
You're talking 1 minute about they're all old fuddy-duddies. Yes, I agree with that as well. But the thing is, aren't there young people out there who can do the same job? Well, people who see what goes on in town, but they don't get involved in it.
It would appear, Mohammed, there are young people out there who don't want to do it.
Well, if I was younger, I would.
Well, exactly, but you're not younger; you're older. So
if I was free of the type of person I was, in them days, even if I went straight afterwards. I mean, I'm 62 years of age now. If I was 30 odd years of age now, and even if I was clean of alcohol and things like that, I'd let everybody go free.
The magistrates that kept fining you, what were they? 3 white, middle-class, middle-aged people?
Well, usually 2 men and a woman, or two women and a man on his own, or maybe the occasional black guy, not very often, but occasional black guy.
And what experience have they got of life? What experience have they got wrapped up in their safe middle-class world? What experience have they got of actually working with criminals, with mixing with drug addicts? I would suggest very, very little.
Yeah, you got a point there, I suppose. Yeah, but I still just think that there's other ways of doing it than.
Okay, Mohammed, we'll leave it there. I think you're slowly coming around to my way of thought there, won't you? It makes sense. I'm generalising slightly. If you're a magistrate, please call up and defend yourself. Please do. Would love to hear from you this morning. 08453 00 9956. My limited experience with the magistrates' courts, and from what I've heard people say, white, middle class, middle-aged people. What do they really know about why people turn to drugs? What do they really know about why people go and rob? Now, listen, I'm not saying that we should be lenient with the crooks that are brought up in front of the magistrates. Of course not. Au contraire. But if someone is coming from that background and has managed to turn their life around, then aren't they the best people to deal with that situation? 08453 00 9956. Joined now by Mark Johnson, who's a former drug addict who grew up in Birmingham. He founded the charity Use a Voice, which supports criminals to reduce reoffending. Morning, Mark.
Hello.
Mark, before we get on to this specifically, can I ask a little bit about your background? How did you get into drugs and how bad was it at the worst?
Well, I come from a very dysfunctional family, alcoholic father, a long line of sort of alcoholics and stuff. And I think when you've got that sort of dysfunction, in your childhood and stuff, it's just very, very easy to become, feral and sort of go on this sort of journey of changing how you feel by using chemicals rather than learning how to live, sort of stably, to be stable emotionally through talking about it in a warm, loving environment. You know, if it's not there, drink and drugs and that sort of lifestyle becomes very easy.
And how did you manage to get off drugs?
Well, I ended up living street homeless in the West End of London, in the shop doorway, you know, and I met another recovering drug addict who is a community action team worker. He struck up a sort of a relationship with me when I was in the shop door. He didn't immediately pick me up, but I really identified with where he was coming from, and I'd never come into contact with anybody before, law courts, prison, anything, that had a solution to my problem. That I never met anybody that got clean off drugs. And this guy, he talked about my story, and he was talking about his own experiences, and I identified with him. And he said, look, trust me. Yeah, and he said he got me into a detox centre. I went into residential drug treatment. You know, I spent a year in there, and then I started my own business. And then I've become an award-winning businessman. And,
well done, you.
And
done.
Then I won the Pride of Britain. I wrote a best-selling book that sold in I've seen it in about 20 languages. And what's really crucial about that is, once the drug addiction was addressed, yeah, and it didn't involve the courts, it involved treatment. Once it was addressed, I've never committed a crime since. And that's the story behind a lot of people. Well, a very small number of people, because there's not enough beds in residential treatment, and we don't do drug treatment or alcohol treatment very well in this country. But the people that do complete have the same story, i.e., all of the crime disappears because there's no need to commit crime once you absolutely address the root causes of it.
What do you make of this proposal by Policy Exchange that drug users, former drug users, and former criminals should be becoming magistrates?
Yeah, I think, you know, when we look at the magistrates, right? They're there to administer the law, right? And they're supposed to be representative of the communities that they are sitting on the panel, you know, the judicial panel, and they're not. You know, sort of 10 years ago there was about 35,000 of them. Now there's 22,000. Now I don't think that that's progression. I think it's death. You know, because they're a typical group. You know, and you've mentioned it before. Old, white, middle-class people, and that's not representative of the community. Now, I take all sides of the angle now. You know, I've been clean 13 years, and I've contributed a lot to society. You know, I work in prisons. I run a national organisation. You know, I sit on the board of London Probation, etc. And you know, there's a lot of contributions that this group, once rehabilitated, can make. Yeah. And it's not necessarily sat as a magistrate either. It's sat in a courtroom when you've got people like your last speaker, yeah, and he's appearing in court with a persistent alcohol problem. You've got people sat in that courtroom ready to assist him, yeah, to point him in the right direction because they know the absolute level of detail and the issues that he's facing.
Mark, would it really make any difference? Because you know that a drug addict or an alcoholic won't give up just because someone gives them a where to find and points them in the direction of NA or AA. They will only stop when they want to stop.
Yeah. No. We've got this. So drug treatment in this country is relatively new. Yeah, it's slightly archaic, right? So, i.e., 62% of all prisoners in the prison have drink and drug-related crimes. Yet we treat it very criminally. Yeah, with the law. That says that everybody commits a crime out of moral choice. Well, when you've got a drink and drug-related problem, yeah, I would say that problem needs to be addressed, whether it's clinically or, you know, medically or whatever. And what's going to happen is more and more people are just going to be going in. Now, what we do have that was introduced, 10 years ago, is DRR, drug treatment or drug referral order. Yeah, and what that does is it kind of forces people into it, and it says, if you don't go here, we restrict your time. You know, we take civil liberties away from you. You have to attend this program. Your bum is on the seat long enough for a message to go in through, you know, people who've been through drug treatment, etc. and a therapeutic intervention, and it's there long enough and persistent enough that can change behaviour, and that's been that has showed evidence of success. So you can force people into considering getting clean or sober. You can do that.
Mark, there will be people listening, and I'm sure we'll get some phone calls, 08453 009956, from these people who say, hang on a second, listen, I don't want to be seen. I don't want my magistrates to be former drug users, because they're going to be lenient on someone that's stolen from me to feed their drug habit. They're going to be lenient on someone that's broken into an old lady's house. It's not fair.
What you'll find, I employ 80% of the charity is ex-offender, right? Now, what we're talking about is quality of rehabilitation, yeah? And that is people who stop drinking drugs, no longer commit crime. You know when we talk about smokers, yeah? The ex-smoker is worse than the smoker. You can't pull the wool over these people. And what you'd actually find, if we tip the balance over to having just ex-drug users, and you'd have harsher punishment, I think. Do you know what I mean? Because they know there's no pulling the wool over their eyes. Now, what sort of my point is with this, one is it should be a mixture of society. It should be reflective of the communities they come out of. It's not. Go to areas of Birmingham, etc., high migration, high BME communities and stuff, and you've got the sort of, I call them, very politically incorrect, is the Blue Rinse Brigade. Yeah? Yep. Sitting over communities, they're not representative. Now, I think ex-drug users and alcoholics should be a part of that mix, just like other people should be, just like the people that have never committed a crime but witnessed it. But the real sort of focus that we have to have is people with insight into these problems and a willingness to want to get to the root of it, rather than just putting these people through the mincer, sending them to prison where they get methadone, and they call that drug treatment. It's not. Do you know what I mean? Methadone is a
drug substitution, yeah, of course.
Yeah? And they put them on it, and even if you get clean in the prison and you come off it, they offer it you before you get released.
Mark, listen, we have to end it there. Absolutely fascinating. Mark Johnson, former drug addict, grew up in Birmingham, from the charity User Voice. He makes a good point. He made a couple of really good points, I thought. A drug addict who stood in front of the magistrates can, if you've got three white middle-class people there, and again, I'm generalising, if you want to phone up and defend that position, 08453 009956, you've got a drug addict stood in the dock going, I'm really sorry, I'll never do it again. I promise that's the last time. Now, your average magistrate might go, well, yes, OK. He sounds like a thoroughly decent chap. He won't do it again. If one of those magistrates is a drug addict, he'll be able to see through that, won't he? He'll be able to see and hear the truth. And it was interesting what he said, that the punishments might even be harsher. 08453 009956. I am struggling here to find an argument against this. If we want to make our legal system fairer and more inclusive and more representative, then we need to get these people, these drug abusers, former drug abusers, these former criminals involved in the legal process. Don't we? 08453 009956.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
BBC WM 95.6.
Ranjit's in Albury. Morning, Ranjit.
Morning, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm very, very good, Ranjit. I'm looking forward to Christmas.
So am I.
I am looking forward to it. The kids making lots of noise, loads of boxes and wrapping paper, and too much food. Wonderful.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. A couple of days off from work.
Excellent. Go on, Ranjit. What do you want to say this morning?
I mean, you could take this a stage further. You know, when they shortlist the politicians,
Yeah.
what they're going to have is you've got to come from a council house estate, to be a politician. I mean, some of the politicians are drug users anyway, or former drug users when they were at university, right? So before you can become an MP, you've got to have lived in a high-rise flat with no double glazing, no heating, and at this time of the year, you've got to look at, are you going to eat or heat yourself, right? That should be one of the criteria.
Why would that be helpful?
Because then it would show the politicians are in touch with the real world. Those politicians that govern us, and they come out with these kind of suggestions, aren't in touch with the real world. That's what my point is.
But why would
same principle?
Well, we're going off a slight tangent, but let's indulge it for a second. Why does a politician need to live on a council estate to be able to identify and make decisions that run the country?
Which politician can you put your hand on your heart, right, and say knows how we people at the bottom feel? Which politician do you know that you can put your hand on your heart? That's a straight, loaded question for you.
Well, I would like to think that a significant majority would be able to empathise. You don't need to live in poverty to have empathy and sympathy for people that live in poverty, do you?
No. What I'm saying is, you're on about now, right, how a drug user who sits on the bench, will understand, right, the frustrations of somebody who is put in front of the magistrate's court, So that I'm using the same principle and taking it a stage further into the politicians. You could have, obviously, say someone like me, right, who's in touch with the real world. I could not go out and run the country. I could not be a chancellor. But you could have administrators, that know how to work the figures. And if it was someone like myself, I would say, right, listen, I'm going to stop money, for example, going to overseas aid.
Ranjit, I want my Chancellor to have had the best education that money can buy, to be a top-class economic whiz. I want my Chancellor to come from a privileged background so that they know what they're doing.
No, I agree with the educated part of it, but you could have administrators running the country and the politicians, right, who instruct the administrations of what the public wants. It's the same principle as what you're discussing. You know, when somebody is leading us, he's going to be in touch with the people on the ground. You're saying somebody who's going to sentence a drug user has got to be experienced in that. It's the same principle. Why is it any different?
Ranjit, I appreciate your call. Thank you very much indeed. Susan in Tipton. Morning, Susan.
Morning.
Susan, what would you like to say?
Well, you've been on about alcoholism. I used to be an alcoholic. Now, I did come off drink through the help of ASBO officer, an a police officer, and Gavin, who worked at the... it weren't the AA, it was something else to do with drinking.
Okay.
And I used to overdose a lot on the medication.
Okay.
Because I was on medication and everything. But I will say, because I got the help I needed, I shouldn't have been drinking in the first place because of all the medication I was on with, suffering with mental health problems and everything. I was constantly arguing, abusive, and heaven knows. And like I said, if I hadn't have had these two people involved in my life, I wouldn't have been able to quit drinking. I'd still been drinking now.
Susan, are you clean and sober now?
Yes.
You don't drink at all?
No, and I've been clean and sober now for the last 2 years.
Well, congratulations. Do you think that someone with your history should be allowed to sit on a magistrate's court, a magistrate's bench, and then pass judgment on other people?
If they've experienced it, then yes, they should, because that way they know because they know then if they've experienced it, they know what that person is going through.
There will be some people listening, Susan, who think that's completely wrong. We've heard from some callers this morning who think that's completely wrong, that if you have an alcohol dependency problem or you've taken significant amounts of drugs, that you shouldn't be allowed to pass judgment on people.
But, well, it was medication to mental health problems, like I said, on the drugs I was taking. And I was overdosing on the painkillers. But, like I said, till I got help, I was... and I did want help, but I wasn't admitted at first.
Susan, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. 08453 009956. We'll come back to that in a second.
Longbridge,
Quarry Bank,
Sturchley,
Rowley Regis
and Harborne. Have your say across the West Midlands on BBC WM 95.6.
Keep calling in about that. Marlene, stay there. I'll come to you shortly. 08453 009956. Keen to get your thoughts on that. But something else that I know you'll want to have your say on. I need a little bit of help this morning, if that's okay. We're recording our very own BBC WM version of the Black Country Nativity Play, complete with your accent from your part of the West Midlands. If you've got an accent, give me a call, 08453 009956. We'll get to that a bit. I want to know as well this morning, are you proud of your accent? Or are you a little bit ashamed by your pronunciation, by your slang, by your language? Do people... The West Midlands accent, I think, gets a very, very hard press. People are very snobbish about it. But does it really matter? 08453 009956. Joined now by Sharon Collins, who's an elocutionist and a voice coach. Good morning, Sharon.
Good morning.
What do you think about the West Midlands accent?
Well, do you know, I don't want to be too controversial because it's Christmas, but you hit the nail on your head yourself. You said people are snobbish. It's true. It's a tough world. If the only accent you have is the Black Country accent, well, basically, God help you, because how will you do in interviews if people can't understand what you say? If they can understand, if you speak clearly, even in an accent, then that's absolutely fine.
God help you if you've got a West Midlands accent?
If it's the only accent you have, and if it's not very clear. If it's clear, then enjoy your heritage and get on with it. It's all about people understanding you the first time and not making prejudgments about you. If someone thinks it's unintelligent, it's uneducated, it's working class, well, these are all negatives, and why not be on a level playing field with someone?
Why is being working class and or coming from a region be a negative?
Because you might be going for a job as a doctor, a lawyer, a high-powered job, and you want to have the authority which you deserve. And maybe your accent lets you down. It's so easy just to improve some of your vowel sounds and modify your accent just a little bit in order to be clear, and there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, I'm not against getting rid of accents. I love accents. I'm a Geordie. I can speak to you today in the strongest Geordie accent you've ever heard, but I can switch off if I need to be understood clearly the first time. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. What's your accent now, Sharon?
Mine? Well, it's just a mixture of Geordie and neutral speech.
Don't you feel sad? 'Cause I can hear a little bit, now you've mentioned it, I can hear a bit of Geordie coming through. But don't you feel sad that you've got, and I say this with the greatest of respect, kind of sort of bland, nothingy accent? It will be hard to place you.
I got over that a long time ago. My reward is people understanding me the first time and listening to what I say rather than how I say it.
Is it not sad that we judge people by accent? Shouldn't we be embracing all these different wonderful accents in the West Midlands and across the whole country? Shouldn't we be embracing them?
Yes, we should. And it really saddens me that my own daughter doesn't know any of the Geordie songs, any of the Geordie sayings. I find it all very, very sad. And so I'm really glad you're doing the Black Country accent. That's brilliant. Embrace what we have. But remember, the world is a global village. We need international communication, and we need to be understood the first time.
Do you think that the West Midlands accent sounds thick?
No thicker than the Geordie accent or the Mancunian or any of them. They don't sound thick. They don't sound posh. And has anybody ever criticised anybody for being too posh?
Well, yes, sometimes they do. We don't all want to sound the same, though, with a bit of received pronunciation. We don't all want to sound posh, do we?
No, but we all want to be understood. We all want to speak clearly. If speaking clearly means you have to modify your accent, then you don't really have a choice. Why fight against it all the time? Just go with the flow, keep your lovely, beautiful accent, but have another one if you're sitting around an international conference and somebody from Italy is speaking English and somebody from Germany, and then you come in with a strong Geordie accent or a strong West Country accent, and you are the only person that the rest don't understand.
Sharon, I really appreciate your time this morning. Have a wonderful Christmas. Thank you very much. That's Sharon Collins, elocutionist and a voice coach. What do you think? If you've got a strong West Midlands accent, you should ditch it, or at least cover it with a posher, I guess, southern accent. Received pronunciation is kind of a south-eastern accent, isn't it? How does that make you feel? You're not going to succeed in life if you've got a strong West Midlands accent. Two things here. Give me a call give me a call and your thoughts on what Sharon said, please. 08453 009956. And if you have got a strong accent, we're going to record this West Midlands nativity play, the Black Country nativity play this morning. If you want a line, 08453 009956. We'll take your calls. We'll speak to Marlene and Jeff after we get the travel. And with the latest travel, it's Liz Saul. Liz.
Yes, and I don't have an accent at all, I must point out.
Well, you can't... Can I speak freely?
Go on. Where do you think I'm from?
Say something. Tell me where you're from.
I'll tell you where I'm from. You're supposed to guess where I'm from.
That's a London accent, isn't it, love?
It is a London accent.
It's a London accent.
But it's a posh London accent. It's not an EastEnders London accent.
Listen, it ain't posh, I'll tell you that for nothing.
You're in the minority.
Liz, away you go.
St Paul Lane is shut in both directions. A vehicle has overturned. It's yet to be righted at the junction with Brockton Road. An emergency service is all still at the scene. It's rather congested in the centre of Birmingham as you head around Moore Street and Jennings Road. People starting to head to the Bullring car parks now. Awful lot of shopping traffic is going to be out and about once again today. The other end of the M6, by junction 1 of the M6, the A426 has been shut just off the motorway in both directions while recovery work takes place. Fish that vehicle out of a hedge nearby, although traffic seems to be coping okay. It's heavy going in Redditch, particularly as you head from Headless Cross and Warwick Highway both ways.
Oh, Liz, you see, this is what happens, you see. Liz, we've lost you. We'll come back to you later on if we can. Thank you very much. I'm not quite sure what happened there. It's Christmas. It was everyone's Christmas party last night. We're all a little bit worse for wear, I think.
Please welcome to the stage Mr. Ed Doolan. This Christmas.
Wonderful that the show's going so well and you are enjoying it.
There's the Ed Doolan Christmas Show. Big round of applause for Doug Parker.
And it was my mother who invented time travel. She used to say, I'll knock you into the middle of next week.
The Carol Service in Birmingham.
We're delighted that you can join us for a very special occasion in the life of the cathedral.
A Soul and Motown special.
Happy Christmas.
And highlights from this year's Moseley Folk Festival. For a list of what's going on when, go to bbc.co.uk/WM.
This Christmas on BBC WM 95.6.
Call it. Morning, by the way. This is Iain Lee, BBC WM 95.6. Here every Saturday between 9 and 12. Call in and defend your accent. You heard our last guest there saying that, keep your West Midlands accent, but if you've got a strong one, you're not going to get very far. You're not going to achieve much in life. It's going to be a little bit embarrassing for you. You need to have a posher accent up your sleeve. Is that right? The accent I'm speaking with now isn't the accent I grew up with. I grew up on a council estate in Slough, and I used to be dead common. I know, I used to be dead common. And every now and then it kind of comes out a bit. I've made myself sound a bit posher. Is that sad, though? I remember in kind of the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, accents, you didn't hear or see accents on television and the radio. Now you do. Now you kind of get a Welsh accent every now and then. You hear accents more. Call in this morning if you've got a strong West Midlands Black Country accent. Give me a call. Defend your accent, please. 08453 009956. We're also still taking your calls on this think tank that is suggesting and recommending that ex-drug users should become magistrates and ex-criminals should become magistrates. And I was saying that the magistrates I've heard and I've seen, they tend to be white, middle-class, middle-aged people, late 40s, 50s through to 60s. 08453 009956. What would you think if you found out that one of the magistrates passing judgment on you or a family member had been a drug abuser? Jeff's in Walsall. Morning, Jeff.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, Jeff. You are a magistrate, is that correct?
That's right, yes.
What do you think about this suggestion?
Well, I think there's a few things that need to just be put to your listeners. First of all, let's remember that anyone can apply to become a magistrate from the age of 18. So there is no restrictions from that point of view.
What are the checks on people's criminal records and drug issues?
Well, there are checks, obviously, which is done during the recruitment process by the Lord Chancellor's Advisory Committee in each area. Obviously, obviously someone, for example, with a minor parking offence may in fact be fine and go through, but it does depend upon the circumstances of that particular offence. So it does vary greatly, and it's down to the rules that are set down by the Lord Chancellor.
OK, so if I'd been to prison for a drugs crime, I wouldn't be allowed to be a magistrate now. Is that what you're saying?
It is highly unlikely, yes.
OK. Should that be changed? Is that fair?
Well, obviously someone who has problems with drugs, it can be looked upon as an illness, or it could be looked upon perhaps as someone making wrong decisions. A magistrate's jobs basically are to pass sentence and to find guilt or innocence. And the backup that magistrates get from people like probation service and other agencies where people have problems of either alcohol or drugs is quite considerable. So the magistrates themselves may not be experts in the area, but they have experts available who will advise them prior to sentence of how this particular person should be dealt with because of the problems that they face.
What's interesting, though, is you said there that drug addiction could be classed as an illness or a series of wrong decisions. It is recognised, isn't it, by the World Health Organisation as an illness, and it should be treated in the same way that we treat people with asthma or treat people with cancer. It should be treated. And the fact that you're putting a question mark by that would imply that perhaps, with the greatest of respect, you don't have the best knowledge on how to deal with someone who stood in front of you who has a serious drug problem.
Well, I mean, I'm not specifically putting a question mark on it. There are two views, aren't there? That it could be looked upon as a situation where there is an illness, which is fine, or that person has made an incorrect decision in the initial period by going into drugs in the first place. That are the two areas of opinions, not necessarily mine, but they just seem to be out there in the general public.
But that doesn't necessarily mean it's right. I firmly come down on the side of, and I thought this was generally accepted by the medical profession, that drug addiction and alcoholism is an illness.
Well, it's certainly treated as an illness, as you quite rightly say, because one of your previous callers who have got experience of this has said that he's working in order to assist people to come off drugs or do away with their alcohol in some form. What you also need to know is that the magistrates are actually highly trained now, not specifically because they have experience in those areas, but they go along to drug treatment centres and see what's done in there, and also talk to the people who supply the alcohol treatment for alcoholics in order to try and stop. And sentencing really is not just about punishment, it is very much about rehabilitation and stopping people from offending again.
And isn't that why having a former drug abuser or having a former burglar sitting on the magistrate's bench, they would know what it took for them to get on the straight and narrow. They would be better placed to offer guidance or advice or sentencing that would have the most positive impact on the offender.
Well, I talk with what I've said previously, in so much as there are people there, experts, who are actually advising the magistrates.
But if the magistrate knew that themselves and didn't need the advice of the experts, if they had that experience firsthand, wouldn't that be better?
It's a possibility that is the case. However, those situations are as they are at the moment, and those experts are available to the bench.
Finally, what about what I've been saying about the majority of magistrates are white, middle-class, middle-aged? Is that fair?
Well, yes, I think it is fair at the moment. The situation is that there is a problem trying to get younger people and people of different ethnic backgrounds to actually join the magistracy. The other thing that's been a problem recently is that there's been very little recruitment of magistrates because of the situation within the court service, where cutbacks have meant that less and less people are going through courts, and courts are also closing. So I think that would be a fair comment at this particular moment in time. Although, as I've said previously, anybody from from the age of 18 upwards can apply to become a magistrate.
Jeff, thank you very much. 08453 009956. We've got a magistrate. Fantastic. Interesting to hear his opinion on that. They have advisors who they can kind of go and have a little chat with behind the scenes, who can help them. But if the magistrate themselves had that experience with alcohol problems, with drug addiction, it's interesting what he said there, that drug addiction, is it a choice or is it an illness? I thought it was accepted generally as being an illness. The World Health Organisation call it a disease that you need to treat. 08453 009956. Marlene's been waiting for ages. Morning, Marlene. Sorry to keep you for so long. What would you like to say?
I've got the 2 points. The first point is with accents. Wolverhampton accent, I can take it or leave it. My children don't really have it because I haven't stamped it out. It's just that for me, Wolverhampton accents don't have the grammatical English. It's like in it or is it. You know what I'm saying? It's that kind of thing. So I will say to them, in it? What do you mean? So they'll say, oh yes, Mom. So I will correct them. So they've kind of not got a Wolverhampton accent simply because it's the grammatical side of it.
I agree with you. People, my boys, if they say in it, boy oh boy, would they be in serious trouble? But the words, the language, they can still speak proper
really,
English, but with an accent, can't they?
No, or is that? And I'm like, what is that? What is that? So to speak the Wolverhampton accent, you have to have that kind of. You lose certain words and they're not right. So to speak like that, I cut it out so they don't actually have the Wolverhampton accent. There's lots of different things which I can't think of off the top of my head because I don't listen to Wolverhampton accents that well at all. Because you kind of, it's not that I shut off. I just find it so difficult to understand some people because of the way they speak.
You're a snob.
I'm a snob, but listen to my accent, though. But my thing is with my accent is I could have dropped it years ago, but I've decided to carry it on. But my thing is, as long as your grammatical English is okay, then that's fine.
I'm getting a couple of accents from you. I'm kind of getting a West Midlands. I'm getting a sort of Caribbean accent as well in there.
You've got a bit of a Caribbean accent as well, but yes, it's kind of mixed in with all sorts of things.
But your voice is unique. And is beautiful because you've got these two cultures thrown together in this wonderful accent. We should be celebrating that, shouldn't we?
I am celebrating it, but my thing is, if you are going to speak with a Wolverhampton accent, use the proper English. Okay. Don't miss out things. I had somebody say to me the one time, "Isa, what is Isa?" Even now, I'm thinking, Isa. I'm like, Isa, what? I don't understand what you're saying.
Marlene, you've got 30 seconds to talk about magistrates.
Magistrates, there is a process that they have to go through. If they can go through the process, that's absolutely fine. There is no qualifications required. It is a process. Even if you have been banned from driving, there is a stipulation that you can't apply for it. So I have no problems with them doing it, but they must be clean for a long while. But they are the worst people. It's like a reformed smoker. They are the worst. They'll be harder. I believe they will be harder on people who have gone through it.
But do you agree? We need more people from, slightly naughty backgrounds. We need more Asians. We need more black people.
But
we need a bigger
reason why
mix.
They can't apply. I have a family member and she says the same. She's rare, but she says the same. There's no reason why people can't apply.
Marlene, we have to end it there. Thank you very much. Excellent points. You're a snob, though, Marlene. Naughty. 08453 009956. Former drug abusers as magistrates. And do you want to phone up and defend your accent, or are you, like Marlene, a little bit of a snob?
Waking up the West Midlands with the latest news, sport, weather and travel updates. Pete Morgan at Breakfast is back Monday morning from 6.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
BBC WM 95.6.
Right, it's bang on 10 o'clock. Let's get the latest news now. Here's Rebecca Dixon.
Remembrance services are being held to mark the 25th anniversary of the day 270 people were killed when the Lockerbie bomb exploded. David Cameron has praised the families of those who died, saying their fortitude and resilience has shown that terrorist acts cannot crush the human spirit. Reverend John Mosey's daughter Helga died in the air crash.
It feels like yesterday, and that flight of time is a deceptive thing. But we've had 25 years of campaigning to try and get to the truth, because some of us have never believed that the Libyans did it, and it looks more and more now that we're going to be shown to be right.
The family of the only man found guilty of carrying out the Lockerbie bombing say they're appealing against his conviction to clear his name. Abdel Basit al-Megrahi died of prostate cancer in Libya last year. Oliver Miles, a former UK ambassador to the country, believes he was used by the Gaddafi regime.
I don't think anybody thinks he was the man behind the bombing. I think the question is whether he was one of the operatives who actually did what had to be done if it was a Libyan bombing. He's supposed to have been responsible for getting the bomb onto the plane in Malta, but nobody thinks that he was the mastermind, so to speak. If there was a Libyan mastermind, it was Gaddafi.
In other news, police have said that Nigella Lawson won't be investigated over allegations that she took cocaine. The TV chef admitted during the trial of two former assistants that she'd used the drug on occasions. The Metropolitan Police say it would review its decision if any evidence comes to light. But solicitor Nick Freeman says there would be grounds for officers to investigate.
The fact of the matter is she accepts that she has taken a prohibited substance, which of course is illegal. And I think it's important we don't lose sight of that.
The head of one of England's main NHS regulators says treating the health service as a national religion has prevented a proper debate about its weaknesses. In an interview for the Daily Telegraph, David Pryor, who's the chairman of the Care Quality Commission, says he found a chillingly defensive culture when he took over in January, with even alpha male surgeons scared to speak out about the failures. Trading standards officers say seizures of counterfeit vodka have doubled in some parts of the country. They're warning that the vodka, often for sale in small independent shops, contains industrial alcohol, which is used in antifreeze. And a family from Bourneville will be singing carols for train passengers travelling down to London Euston this morning. 31 members of the Bennett family will be on the 10:30 train from Birmingham New Street to raise funds for research into muscular dystrophy, which causes muscles to weaken over time. 5-year-old Abby, who's a member of the family, has a rare type of the condition which can't be treated or cured. Abby's dad, Gary, told BBC WM how it affects Abby every day.
She needs help with most things, getting dressed, washing.
Yeah.
She can't walk up and downstairs. She falls quite often, quite easily.
I can get downstairs myself.
You need help with lots of things, don't you? But she makes up for it. She's got a smashing personality and she deals with it wonderfully well.
And a look at the weather. A windy day, some gales around as well. Heavy showers this evening, highs of 12 degrees Celsius, 54 degrees Fahrenheit. Tonight, those heavy showers continuing, and then a largely dry but windy night, lows of 3 degrees Celsius, 37 degrees Fahrenheit. BBC WM 95.6 News. There's more online at bbc.co.uk/WM.
The Voice. The Voice. The Voice. The Voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
They have kids and they want somebody else to keep them.
Social services shouldn't exist.
I know quite a few people that have had pay cuts in their wages just to hang on to their job.
Iain Lee, Saturdays
9 till 12.
BBC WM 95.6.
Good morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC WM 95.6, every Saturday morning now between 9 and 12. I say every Saturday morning, I'm having next week off. For goodness sakes, it's Christmas. Indulge me slightly, won't you? Lots to talk about in this hour of the show, including I want your highlights, please, of 2013. Big and small, they can be huge things that have taken over the news, for example, Nelson Mandela, or they can be tiny, tiny little things, but they're significant in your life. Maybe you moved house. Maybe you had a baby. Anything like that. The highlights of 2013 for you. 08453 009956. Taking more of your calls. Are you proud of your black country accent? Or are you a bit of a snob? Our last caller, when her kids start speaking with the accent and using the local slang, she gives them a metaphorical wallop. Tells them not to speak like that. Should we be proud of our accents? And still taking your calls on this as well this morning. A think tank has called for drug users and criminals to be allowed to be magistrates. Well, if you've got a driving ban on your record, the chances are you won't get to become a magistrate. It makes sense, doesn't it? The more I think about it, the more I would welcome former drug abusers and former criminals on the bench as magistrates. Surely if you say that they shouldn't be doing that, You're denying people the chance to change. You're saying that people can't change, they can't reform, they can't make amends. And that's not fair, is it? Iain.lee, IAIN.LEE at bbc.co.uk. You can send me a text, 81333, start your text WM, or the best way to get in touch, and we've got a couple of lines free now, so now is an excellent time to give me a call, 08453 009956.
Britain's only woman Prime Minister, Margaret...
Oh, that's for later. That's for later. Don't panic. That's a little tease. That's a little tease. That's our best of 2013 mix. A little tease of what's coming up. Do give us a call with your best ofs for 2013. And I say they can be huge things. They can be massive, massive things. Or they can be tiny things that affected your life. Maybe you moved house. Maybe you had a baby. Maybe you... well, I don't know. Maybe your youngest started school. Do give me a call. Let me know your best of bits of 2013. 08453 009956 is the telephone number if you want to give me a call. I teased you with it. Shall we play it? Yes. Why not? Why don't we play it? Let's have a listen to what some of the best, biggest news stories of 2013 have been. See if you agree with any of these.
Britain's only woman Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, has died at the age of 87. She suffered a stroke. During her 11 years in office, Lady Thatcher engaged in a lengthy battle with the mining unions and survived an IRA bomb attack. Speaking outside number 10 Downing Street, David Cameron paid this tribute to her.
One thing that runs through everything that she did, it was her lion-hearted love of this country. She was the patriot Prime Minister, and she fought for Britain's interests every step of the way.
Andy Murray has made history, becoming the first British man to take the Wimbledon title in 77 years.
Murray serves. Here it is. Forehand from Murray, backhand from Djokovic. Murray's the Wimbledon champion. It seems ludicrous to say it. 6-4, 7-5. But a British man has just won Wimbledon.
Good morning. The Duchess of Cambridge has spent the night in hospital in London after giving birth to a baby boy. The Duke, who stayed with his wife and son, say they couldn't be happier. The boy, who weighed 8 pounds 6 ounces, will be third in line to the throne.
We were at home, we were watching TV, and then we got so excited, so we drove over here super fast to come and see the framed announcement. We love Will and Kate.
Beginning with breaking news in the last 20 minutes, Nelson Mandela has died. He was 95. Mr. Mandela led South Africa's transition from the white minority rule in the 1990s after 27 years in prison. In a statement on South African national TV, Mr. Zuma said Mr. Mandela had departed and was at peace.
Well, that's how WM brought you some of the biggest stories of the year. What are your big stories of the year? They can be national, international, or they can just be happened in your house. 08453 009956. Joined now by Paul Connew, who's a media commentator and former editor of the Sunday Mirror. A lot of big things this year, Paul. It's difficult, isn't it, to pick one event that's defined 2013?
It is, and as your clip, your montage just showed, I mean, two massive deaths in terms of Margaret Thatcher, whose politics I didn't really share, but she was a titanic figure in British political history, and of course on a global front to Nelson Mandela. And from a personal point of view, in my case, two old friends in David Frost and Peter O'Toole. So, yes, it has been a very, very, very hectic news year, and also ending, things tend to get quieter towards the end of the year, but not this time. I mean, the rather sensational, trial, which, in a sense, was, one always said the trial of Nigella Lawson, which, of course, it wasn't, although in the court of public opinion, that's what it almost turned out to be. And probably the image that will haunt everyone from this year, was the footage of the appalling murder of the soldier Lee Rigby.
It feels like, looking back, it's been a pretty grim year, doesn't it? You mentioned the deaths of David Frost and Peter O'Toole, Nelson Mandela, Margaret Thatcher, Lee Rigby, the Nigella. I'm trying to think of anything that's been particularly joyous and wonderful.
Well, I suppose two that spring to mind, to the top of the head, of course, are in fact the birth of Prince George. Which, funnily enough, is the first time since 1894 that there have been 3 generations of heirs to the throne, alive at the same time, which is, is an interesting statistic.
Mm.
And of course, we shouldn't forget on the more upbeat front, Andy Murray finally ending the men's singles jinx at Wimbledon.
Well, you say that, but when Scotland get independence, we won't be interested in him again, will we? It'll be a different thing altogether. You were the
I'll give you a little bet that the vote for independence in Scotland is to remain in the UK, and
Really?
I'll put my shirt on that one.
Okay, well, that's something to look forward to. You were the editor of the Sunday Mirror, deputy editor of the Daily Mirror. When major events happen, how did you deal with it? How would you deal with the death of a huge public figure?
Well, in terms of someone like Thatcher and Mandela, you would have a lot of stuff prepared anyway because of their age and because of the fact it was well known that neither were in very good health, and so you'd have a lot prepared in any case, and then it would be a question really of really reporting the fact of the death and the immediate reactions, but if you like, the in-depth study of their life and times and influence would have been pretty well prepared in advance, both in terms of print newspapers and, of course, the broadcast media too.
Yes, people do think it's very macabre that a lot of people don't know that we here at the BBC, we will have packages ready for when Prince Philip and the Queen pass away. We will have spoken to people, and there will be tapes lying around somewhere of people telling us what they were like when they were alive.
Precisely, but that is simply sensible planning. In fact, if the public really thought about it, I think they'd agree with that, because you can't, with an event of such magnitude, you can't actually just put it all together. In fact, in a few minutes, you've got to have a lot prepared.
But Paul, as well as getting people to phone in this morning with their kind of big news stories, I also want people to let me know their own personal triumphs or disasters of 2013. For me, I guess the main thing, two main things. My youngest had an operation that he came out of successfully, wonderful, and my eldest is the first time he got to wear his school uniform. Now, those are two wonderful, significant things for me. Is there anything in your 2013, Paul, that probably didn't make the newspapers, but is significant for you?
Well, true for me. One, the birth of my youngest grandchild. In fact, about 6 weeks ago.
Oh, fantastic! What a great Christmas present.
And earlier in the year, in fact, I had a kidney removed because of kidney stone complications. So that's one gain and one loss, if you like.
There you go. You see, it's all karmic. But Paul, listen, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Have a great Christmas and congratulations, a 6-week-old baby before Christmas. Isn't that fantastic? That's what it's all about. Paul Connew there, media commentator, former editor of the Sunday Mirror. Let's throw this open to you, dear listener. I mean, the big stories, Nelson Mandela, Margaret Thatcher, Prince George, those are the big stories, aren't they? Any other big news stories that have affected you that you think define this year? And perhaps more interestingly, use this opportunity. It's Christmas. Let's phone up and let's use this radio show as our own personal outlet, shall we? The things that have happened to you and your family that wouldn't have made the newspapers. They can be wonderful things. Oh, seeing my eldest boy in his school uniform. Oh, it broke my heart. It broke my heart, my little boy. And then my youngest as well, having this operation. It wasn't a massive thing, but it involved having his bladder disconnected and reconnected. I know, how unpleasant. And he came out of it and he's fine. Wonderful. Two great things for me. Let's have your personal news stories. They can be happy, they can be sad. Maybe you lost someone, maybe you gained someone. Let me know. 08453 009956. Let's celebrate and herald your news stories of 2013. 08453 009956. You can send me a text as well. 813 333. Start your text WM. Right, it's 10:15 exactly. Let's get the latest travel news now. Here's Liz Saul.
Thank you very much, Ian. As you head to Brockton, you'll find that Paul Lane is still shut in both directions. Recovery work continues on a vehicle which overturned at Brockton Road. Emergency services all still at the scene. We're getting reports of problems just off Junction 3 of the M6. The A444, reportedly a rather large exhaust pipe has suddenly appeared in the carriageway, so police are on the way to the scene to sort it out. Just off Junction 1 of the M6, the A426 is shut both ways. The recovery work continues on an accident to fish a vehicle that's ended up out of a nearby hedge. It's heavy going in Redditch this morning, particularly slow along Warwick Highway both ways from Headless Cross and the Battens Drive turn. Hagley Road is looking congested as you head into Birmingham once again. Your match day travel sees Wolves fans going to Rotherham. It's a 2-hour journey via the A38 and the M1. Those routes both looking OK so far. Villa fans, a slightly shorter journey off to Stoke up the M6, which is also looking OK. If you can update us, call BBC WM 95.6 travel 08453 002288.
Liz, I want your not news story of 2013, please. It could be something huge or it can be something tiny that just happened to you.
It's been generally uneventful, although my mum was ill in the summer and she's come through fine and she's all well again, so that's good.
That's fantastic. She's well and healthy, is she?
Yes, she is.
Superb. That's exactly what we're after. Liz, thank you very much indeed. 08453 009956.
I've been so busy, I've asked my little BBC WM elves to gift wrap some special shows just for you. There's Pete Morgan.
I'll present music from the movies.
Adrian Goldberg.
From the Midlands with love, I present a music special with the Wonder Stuff's Miles Hunt.
Caroline Martin.
Ahead of the 50th anniversary of Radio Caroline, we look at the history of pirate radio.
Danny Kelly.
A special look at the 1980s, the good, the bad and the ugly.
And Paul Franks.
An hour of rock music, special guests, including Mick Jones, the man who started the band Foreigner back in 1976.
For a list of what's going on when, go to bbc.co.uk/WM.
This Christmas on BBC WM 95.6.
That's a cracking one from Liz. Her mum was poorly, and now she's fine. She's out the other side. What a relief. My mum's not very well at the moment. I'm looking forward to next year to knocking this on the head and coming out of it the other side and being better. So what have been your triumphs or your disasters, your own personal bits of news from 2013? What things have defined your year? And we can talk about the big things. We can talk about Mandela. We can talk about Margaret Thatcher. But to be honest, I'm kind of more interested to hear the things that have made your year so special or, let's be honest, so bad. Gatford's emailed in, iain.lee@bbc.co.uk. My best moment of 2013 was becoming an uncle in August. Suddenly I became someone who shows pictures to everyone in the office. You see? Isn't that fantastic? 08453 009956. A lot to talk about this morning. I kind of feel this is my last show of 2013, so I kind of feel we're tying up lots of loose ends. So we'll be jumping all over the shop this morning. I kind of apologise, but I don't actually mean it. Drug addicts and criminals, should they be allowed to be magistrates? A think tank has called for this, saying that they be best placed to give advice, to give punishment and to help with rehabilitation. Imagine that. If you've got someone who's been to prison for stealing and they're serving on the magistrate's bench, they will know, won't they? They'll be in the unique position of knowing what helped them to get on the straight and narrow, what helped them change their lifestyle. 08453 009956. John's in Codsall. Joan, I do apologise. Morning, Joan.
Morning. You'll have to excuse me. You've caught me out taking the dog a walk. So
Oh, don't apologise. Whereabouts are you this morning then?
Well, I am in Codsall.
Okay. And what's your dog called? What's your dog called, Joan?
Well, very appropriately for this time of year, Holly.
Oh, there you go. You see, isn't that delightful? Are you all set for Christmas? You ready?
Almost, yes.
Oh, I'm done. All I've got to do is wrap the presents. I've ordered all the presents. I've got some things coming in, hopefully today, and then I've got to wrap them, and that is it. We're done.
Right. You were talking about, was it...
Oh, accents. Yes, accents. I do apologise. Yes, go on.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the lady you had in the very beginning,
Yes.
you know, I forget what her name was now.
That was Sharon. She was Sharon Collins, an elocutionist and voice coach.
I should think it was. Well, where did she come from? Nobody could tell at all. She just got her voice. Well, to Frank, she was a nobody.
Well, she was
she came from.
She was a Geordie, and once she mentioned it, I could kind of hear a hint of Geordie in there. But her accent was a little bit. You couldn't place her, could you?
No, and I think that's worse, really, than having an accent that you could trace. I mean, obviously, you've got to have an accent that people can understand you. Although, having said that, you've got Sir Alex Ferguson. Where does he come? From Glasgow, and it hasn't exactly held him back in his job, has it?
Are you embarrassed by your accent, Joan?
No, because I came from the Black Country originally. Well, that's Cotswold, Staffordshire, but I was born in Woodsetton, which is definitely Black Country. But the Black Country accent is the nearest you can get to Old English in the country.
Oh.
You know, Chaucerian. If you hear somebody from Gordon or somewhere around there, it's very, very close to Old English accent. And there used to be somebody on years ago who gave us a talk on this and explained that, you know, I did Chaucer at school. The teacher thought we were all going to find it difficult, but in fact we found it quite easy because it was very close to an accent that we knew.
He's filthy, Chaucer, isn't he? Utter filth, that book.
Well, I did the Pardoner's Tale.
Oh,
so.
OK. That's not... I think The Wife of Bath, I seem to remember as being the one that's particularly mucky.
But you listen to that, and it's very close to to sort of the accent you get in the very broad Black Country accent. But
what did you think? We had a mum on who doesn't let her kids speak in their Black Country accent.
Well, is that the lady who was of Caribbean?
Yeah.
Well, I could tell straight away where she came from, and it didn't hold her back from giving a very articulate...
But do they not make a point? Does Sharon, the voice coach, not make a point that if you want to succeed in politics, or if you want to succeed in broadcasting, or if you want to be the head of a bank, you need to have almost an accentless voice? That you don't see many Brummie newsreaders or Brummie heads of Barclays, do you?
I suppose not, but on the other hand, I bet if you went through a few MPs, you'd have their local accent on them. They've probably a lot of them have been born and bred in the place what's the word,
Well, they grew up, yes.
Grew, yeah.
Joan, thank you very much indeed. 08453 009956. She's not embarrassed of her accent. She's proud of it. Well, are you proud of yours? You don't see many heads of industries with strong regional accent. When was the last time you saw a CEO of an organisation with a strong Black Country accent? It doesn't happen. The last time there was a minister, for the government with a strong regional accent, it doesn't happen. They've all got received pronunciation or all kind of southeastern accents. 08453 009956. Your accent. Are you proud of it or are you ashamed of it? Back onto magistrates. Would you welcome drug addicts and criminals as magistrates? Nick's in Coventry. Morning, Nick.
Hello, Ian.
Nick, what do you think on this?
Yeah, well, I think whether an ex-criminal or a drug addict gets back into the magistrate system or not really depends on the magnitude and the degree of his offence in the past. But quite frankly, I think you had a Ranjit on earlier on.
Yeah.
He was making this distinction or this analogy with politicians.
Yeah.
And I personally think that the legal justice system is very, very heavily integrated or interlinked with the kind of with the kind of political system we have. And if it's okay for politicians to have past offences, if you look at it, some on the international scene, ex-terrorists can become presidents and things like this, and perfectly capable as well, then what is wrong with people with those past offences getting involved in the magistrate system?
I think you're right, Nick. I want my politicians, I want my magistrates to have lived. Now, I'm not saying I want them all to have taken drugs, but I wouldn't be upset if my local MP came out and said, you know what, 15, 20 years ago, I smoked a few spliffs and I did a little bit of cocaine. I wouldn't think any less of them. I think, OK, you've experimented, you've experienced a different aspect of life. Not condoning it, it's illegal, of course. But
the other criteria, of course, is that if they can be released or when they finish their sentence and things like this, if they can get back into the economic and social system, act as wage earners or even become owners of businesses, then they should be fully entitled to become part of the legal system as magistrates.
Nick, I appreciate your call. I'm not condoning drug use. I'm not condoning bad behaviour. But if my local MP came and said, yeah, do you know what, 15, 20 years ago at college, I did some cocaine, did some pills, I wouldn't think any less of them. As long as they're not doing it now, as long as they're not, in the Houses of Parliament off their mash, I wouldn't really care. I'd think, OK, well done, you have experimented, you have experienced a different side of life. You're not doing it now? Great, OK, carry on. Fantastic. And that makes sense, doesn't it? We've all got pasts, we've all got histories. And I'd like to think that the people in control, both in the legal system and in the political system, have... How can I put this? This is a tough one to phrase. But they have experienced not just that kind of straight, normal life. Am I being unfair? 08453 009956. Now, on to the slightly more sombre subject. At 7:03 this evening, the names of the 270 people killed in the Lockerbie bombing will be read aloud in Westminster Abbey. Services are being held in England and Scotland to mark the 25th anniversary of the disaster when Pan Am Flight 103 to New York exploded over the Scottish town. 243 passengers, 16 crew members and 11 people on the ground were killed. Well, 600 people are due to attend a service in Westminster Abbey this evening. One of those is Dr Jim Swire from Bromsgrove. His 23-year-old daughter Flora was a passenger on Flight 103. Good morning to you, Jim.
Good morning. Thank
Jim,
you for inviting me.
Well, thank you for joining me this morning. When did you find out what had happened to the flight and indeed what had happened to your daughter?
Well, I was making a family calendar, sticking photographs in for each month, that sort of thing, and my wife called me through because there were awful pictures about a town on fire on the television. And, of course, that was Lockerbie. And my most vivid memory of that television coverage was a stone-built gable end with a chimney in it and the flames from the burning jet fuel, as we now know, all around it, the rest of the house having been demolished. And that reminded me so vividly of the Isle of Skye, where I was brought up. And the Isle of Skye is full of stone-built ruins from the days when people were being exported from Scotland in what came to be known as the clearances. And somehow that linked with my youth and my life experience to fix that telecast in my mind forever. And it was some time before we realised that it was Flora's aircraft that had fallen on the poor little town of Lockerbie.
How did you find out that Flora was aboard that terrible flight?
Well, when these sort of things happen, there are always numbers broadcast and shown on the television screen that you can ring to find out more if you're worried. And we tried that, but of course the numbers were continually engaged. We couldn't get through to anybody. And in the end, I got through to the Pan Am desk at JFK in New York, and they had a passenger manifest and were able to confirm the worst, namely that Flora was on board. But that's how we actually confirmed it. A terrible, terrible set of circumstances about her getting onto the flight, because our unfortunate other daughter, Kathy, actually went to the airport with her to see her off safely. Terrible burden for all of us.
And it was a last-minute decision, wasn't it, for Flora to get on that flight?
Well, she had trouble getting a seat, and I don't want to go into the politics of it now, but in fact, at that time, as we see now, so shortly before Christmas, by some extraordinary coincidence, that was the only plane that was only 2/3 full, and she managed to get a seat there when there weren't any seats anywhere else. Thereby maybe hangs a tale. But anyway, that's how it happened, that she was on that particular flight going to see her boyfriend. And her boyfriend was an American Jewish, brilliant medical scientist, and she and he had both converged on a place called Queen Square in London, which is Britain's leading neurological institute. They both had research projects running there because they were both brilliant medical scientists. That's where she met him, and she was looking then for truth in life and for what philosophy to adopt. And he was a Jewish American, and he introduced her to Rabbi Albert Friedlander. And after she'd been murdered, Albert Friedlander described her as a great seeker after truth. And to a great extent, that's sustained me over the past 25 years, because that's exactly what I've been trying to do. Nothing else, nothing political, trying to find the truth about who really murdered them and why their lives were not protected in the face of all the warnings that had been received beforehand. And with no inquiry still, 25 years later, I think it's about time that our government came clean.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Who do you think did murder her? Obviously, the only person that has been convicted was Abdul Basit al-Megrahi, who was released from a Scottish prison due to ill health. Do you think he was guilty?
No, I don't think he was involved at all. I don't think the bomb came from Malta, as described in the court. Extraordinary event. I was there throughout the trial of Megrahi. I went in there believing that, of course, he was one of the two murderers on trial, murderers of my daughter, together with his fellow countryman, Fima. But by the end of hearing all the evidence, I was convinced that he was a scapegoat and had nothing whatever to do with the killing, largely because for me, I'm a technically brought-up guy. I was a doctor, but I also studied electronics, worked for BBC and that sort of thing. It was the technical evidence about the bombs used that really converted me, because evidence was led that there were bombs available to the terrorist cliques in 1988, which were a very specialised kind. They were made in Syria, and the group that was making them was in cahoots with Tehran, with Iran. And Iran had had an Airbus destroyed by an American missile 5 months before Lockerbie, and I believe that in revenge she initiated the Lockerbie disaster. But to cut a long story short, the Syrian group had these specialised bombs, and not sure their lordships ever fully understood, even though it was described in court, how these work. But it's very simple. To use them, you had to get into the airport where the plane you wanted to destroy was going to take off from, because inside the bombs, although they would never explode at ground level, if you put them in a plane, they would sense the drop in air pressure as the plane climbed away. You know, the popping in the ears that you get when you go up. The air pressure switch sensed that, and what we were told in the court was that after about 7 minutes, the air pressure switch would switch on a timer. And we were told the timers were all made in Damascus by this terrorist group, and they were very crude timers. They could only run for a maximum of 30 minutes. They had no adjustments on them whatsoever, and they were pretty approximate. It was roughly 30 minutes runtime. And if you add 7 minutes to 30 minutes, you come out with a figure of 37. Now, both the 7 minutes and the 30 to 40 minutes runtime of the timer are approximate. The Lockerbie plane flew for 38 minutes, where we really expected to believe that a man in Malta, using instead a sophisticated digital timer, supplied to him, of course, by the Libyan government, was the story, had set that timer to only clear Heathrow by 38 minutes in the week before Christmas, when many flights are delayed, when he could have used his timer to set it to go off easily if he'd wanted it, over mid-Atlantic or even over the eastern United States seaboard. A crazy story. The bomb was supposed to have come around from Malta via Frankfurt, changed planes again at Heathrow, and so on. But there was evidence led in that trial which pointed to a very different direction, and I believe that behind that alternative explanation lay Iran seeking revenge, and that she obtained her revenge by using the Syrian group as surrogates for her, because they had the most sophisticated terrorist bombs that were available in 1988, designed exclusively to destroy aircraft in flight.
Jim, going back to the services that are being held today, do these services help at all, or do they reawaken old wounds?
Well, I feel I have a responsibility in that, because apart from helping the organisation of the Westminster Service, which the Abbey have been fantastic about, I also have a 3-minute slot to speak. And for someone like me who's been immersed in the politics and stuff of it all for 25 years, it's very difficult not to talk about that. But in these services, we have to think, particularly as this one is televised, we have to think about who will be watching and listening. And, of course, a very important group of people who will be listening and watching will be American relatives. And one of the awful things about these 25 years, for me, is that most of the American relatives have accepted what they've been told about Megrahi being responsible, and he, of course, working for Gaddafi. Now, I can't believe that anymore with all that I know now about the evidence. But I'm well aware that when I start saying, oh, it wasn't him, it wasn't Gaddafi, it was Iran, I well understand that I'm making life harder for them. So I mustn't do that in Westminster Abbey. I want the Westminster Abbey service to be a service of remembrance and warmth for all those who are involved in this terrible tragedy, and I believe that it will be that. But really, to answer your question, the memory of Flora and the gladness of having shared life with her are with us every day of every year, and when these anniversaries come around, it's really not so much different, except that we have to share it then with the rest of the world.
Jim, I really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much.
I hope I haven't depressed your listeners.
No, not at all. I think it's a very powerful story, and our thoughts will be with you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that.
Dr. Jim Swire there from Bromsgrove. Wow, what a powerful story. 25 years ago. Well, it sent shivers down my spine. Imagine having to carry that burden for 25 years. 08453 009956.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
BBC WM
95.6.
Ah, dear. We got it lucky, haven't we? Really, when you hear something like that, we've got it lucky. What a strong man to be able to deal with that. Let's talk about your 2013. What are the big stories that have affected you? And they can be huge international stories, or it could be something that happened to you. Two things that really mark my 2013. My little boy, my youngest, it was a serious operation on his bladder and his kidneys. He came out of the other side. Fantastic. For a couple of months we were terrified. He came out and he's pretty much back to normal now. And also my eldest in his school uniform for the first time with his school cap. Wonderful. What have been your stories, highs or lows, of 2013 that have made it such a significant year for you? 08453 009956. Bill's in Northfield. Morning, Bill.
Morning.
Bill, what have been your stories for 2013?
This year I had a heart attack.
Oh, my goodness.
And I was rushed into the hospital and I had stents put in. A fortnight later, I was rushed back into hospital with severe bleeding of the bowel.
Oh, my.
And I bled for 4 days. Which was life-threatening.
Yeah, I bet.
But I'm here. And then I went on a holiday as well to Benidorm on my own. And I thoroughly enjoyed it.
You went to bed on holiday on your own?
Yeah, after having all that.
Have I ever done that? I've been away for a weekend to New York, but that was kind of for work. What was that like? How did that go?
Oh, brilliant. I went to Tunisia the year before on my own, and on the 19th of January, I'm off to Lanzarote on my own to the Canary Islands.
You don't care, do you, Bill? Well done, you.
Look, after all that, I'm here, aren't I?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
When you had a heart attack...
Yes, sir.
Did it hurt?
Nah, Dad, of course it hurt.
Well, I don't know. I remember my dad, bless his soul, when he had a heart attack. Did it hurt, Dad? He said, yeah. Flipping well did.
Yes,
what does it feel?
Well did.
What does it feel like?
You got great big sharp pains in your chest, and then it goes in the middle of your chest, and sometimes you can have a heart attack both sides. Don't think it's just good as the left, but you can get it on the right as well. And I had mine on the right-hand side.
And did you know it was a heart attack when it was happening?
No, I didn't. I thought it was indigestion, and I went 3 or 4 days, and I was having little heart attacks all the time.
Oh my goodness, Bill!
And then on a Friday, I had a major one, and I was in. So when they called, I was in a church, and they called paramedics, and I was rushed to the hospital, and I had stents put in.
Oh, you talked about the heart attacks, the bleeding bowel. Are you well and healthy now, Bill?
Yes, because bleeding bowel, I'm diabetic, and I have to take insulin, right?
Yeah.
And so when I had the heart attack, it was the blood thickening and everything else because of because of the diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
So they gave me some thinning tablets to thin the blood out. And of course that worked against the things and everything else, and that's why I had something to happen to the bowels anyway, and I just poured the blood. I had 7 packs of blood pumped into me.
Blimey. Well, Bill, listen, I'm glad that everything's on the up then. You take care of yourself, won't you?
Yes, I'm going to enjoy next year because I'm off to, as I say, I'm off to Lanzarote.
You have a cracking time.
Yeah.
Bill, thank you very much indeed. I love this. This is why I love doing phone-in radio shows, because I get to hear your stories. And it's wonderful hearing people's stories, isn't it? Isn't it fantastic? 08453 009956. I want to hear your stories of 2013, good or bad. What made 2013 such a significant year for you? I'm hoping that more of you had the positive stories than negative. But if you had a negative story and you want to share it, give me a call this morning, 08453 00 9956. On the subject of... we're all over the shop this morning, and this is great. The subject of drug abusers and criminals potentially being magistrates. 08453 00 9956. Terry's in Coseley. Morning, Terry. What do you think about this?
Good morning. I was in the gym training when I was listening to it.
Oh.
And quite honestly, I was against it. And as it went on, working out on my punch bag and listening to it, gradually
Yes.
I come around to it. And then I remembered, I've been in court quite a few times, because when I was younger, I was always fighting, you know. I thought that was a good thing to do.
No.
And
Naughty.
well, yeah, it was, but I'd never fight in a dance hall. I always used to fight outside in a car park.
Oh, well, that makes it different then.
Yeah,
What?
my dad was a professional fighter, and he told me that was the way to do it, so I always did. But that ain't the point. What I'm trying to say was...
Yes.
I had to go to court a few years ago, and I've got a punch bag that actually hits me back. I've invented it myself.
What?
So it hits me back.
How does it hit you back?
Well, I've got a piece of wood that hangs on top of my ordinary punch bag with two chains hanging down and two bags full of sand and sawdust.
Yes.
And they swing violently.
Oh, my goodness.
You know, that's like having a sparring partner. You see, if you ain't got a sparring partner, that hits your back, so it's better than just hitting a punch bag.
Okay.
So, but anyway,
Yes.
I'd got quite a few cuts and bruises. I've got a black eye and a cut across my nose, because I've been training with somebody in kickboxing who got long toenails, and he cut my face quite badly, you know, with his long toenails.
Terry, what the... You sound like a right thug.
No, I look like one, but I'm not.
Good.
This is the point I'm trying to make.
Yes,
When I
let's
went
get
to
to it.
court and I looked like a thug, I've got some cuts on my nose and I got a black eye.
Yes.
And when I went in and stood in the dock, the magistrate, the woman, she'd have had me undrawn and quartered if she could have.
Yeah.
Because I looked like a thug. Oh no, wasn't it? It was just sparring in the gym with a guy that had got long toenails, and he was reprimanded for his toenails after. That was really dangerous when you're kicking.
Hang on a second. You just heard a sentence I'd never thought I'd hear. He was reprimanded for his toenails.
Yes, he was, yeah.
Wow.
That sounded pretty bad, don't it, when you're kickboxers? But if you've got long toenails and you're swinging, you haven't got no protection.
Toenails? Yes, okay. So, but how did you... Hang on a minute, I'm confused. How have you... So you've changed your mind about drug users becoming magistrates because of a man's toenails?
The simple reason is the way I looked.
Yes.
This magistrate had got me guilty.
Yes.
She'd have stopped the proceedings there and said, this guy is guilty, we don't need to go any further.
Yes.
So therefore, I do think, like somebody like me, if I'd have been a magistrate, which I obviously couldn't be, but if I was, I would have understood a little more. This woman didn't understand at all.
Yeah.
It was simply the way I looked. You see.
Terry, thank you very much indeed. So I think what Terry's arguing for there is that people with long toenails should be allowed to be magistrates. Is that the point he was making? I think it was. 08453 00 9956. On the subject of accents, Marie in Coseley. Marie, are you embarrassed by your accent?
No.
Tell me why.
Because I haven't really got one. Well, I could have. I could have an accent from wherever I've lived, which is up and down the country.
Hang on a minute. You've got an incredibly strong accent.
From here?
Yeah, it sounds like. How long have you lived in Coseley?
I have 30 years.
Well, I can hear that
Black
accent.
Country. Yeah, I know you can, because it's developed and I'm not ashamed of it. I was born in Liverpool, lived all over the country, and as children, I think you just develop the accent to wherever you live in.
You will never succeed in life, Marie.
Rubbish.
You'll be a failure. You'll never get a decent job. You'll never be powerful and wealthy. You'll never influence anybody because of your voice.
I don't want to. But the point is, that lady, she did have a bit of a point. That
was our...
For those kind of jobs...
Shut that dog up.
I know, she's vile. For those kind of jobs, you do need a non-accent.
Yes.
But the story I was going to tell you was we moved to Lower Gornal from Somerset.
Yeah.
When I was 14. We might as well have moved abroad.
Really?
Yeah,
but
it's not an accent, it's a language.
Oh, in Somerset?
No, in Gornal.
Oh, right, OK, yeah, sorry, yes.
It's a language, it's fabulous. And we moved into this house, and the next door neighbour was lovely. She coming round with cups of tea and biscuits and things. And my mum said, I'm going to have to find out what that woman's called, because I can't understand a word she says.
Fantastic.
And then she came back triumphant and said, her name's Cora. her name wasn't Cora, her name was Edna. And what she'd actually said to my mum was, my name's Edna, but I'll call her Mary.
Fantastic, Marie. Thank you very much indeed. 08453 009956. If you've got a strong accent, you will never succeed in life. You'll never be rich. You'll never have a good job. You'll never influence anybody. What do you think? 08453 009956. 10:45 exactly. Right, let's get the latest travel news now. Here's Liz Saul. Liz.
Thank you very much, Ian. As you head to the M6, it's struggling northbound 12 to 14. That's the A5 Gailey exit through to the A34 Stafford turn. And now, of course, your match day travel today sees Villa fans heading to Stoke up the M6. Although it's not till 3 o'clock the kick-off, just be mindful of that congestion at the moment. Wolves fans are going a bit further afield to Rotherham, though the A38 and the M1, the suggested route, is not looking too bad at all. It's rather congested in the centre of Birmingham, all routes around the Bullring shopping centre. A lot of people, Christmas shoppers, heading towards there, particularly slow on Moore Street and the Queensway and Jennings Road. Around Merry Hill is looking quite congested as well in the Brierley Hill area. And in Brockton, Pool Lane is still shut both ways as a car overturned earlier this morning. The junction with Brockton Road, all emergency services still at the scene. The level crossing in Cradley Heath isn't working. It's stuck, police tell us, so Woods Lane has been shut both ways at the junction with Forge Lane, the A4100. That's likely to cause you a bit of congestion. It's heavy in Redditch, still on Warwick Highway both ways, particularly from Headless Cross. If you can update us, call BBC WM95.6 Travel 08453 002288.
Pete Morgan at breakfast.
Waking up Birmingham and the Black Country.
On Friday morning's programme, we looked at how the emergency services are dealing with one of their busiest times of the year.
I think tonight's going to be a busy night leading up to New Year, so we think we'll probably see around about, 50 to 60 people at least.
And we had a zoo quiz. Female elephants, then.
A female elephant is a cow.
It is a cow. Well done. What is a group of alligators called? Come on, make it snappy.
A croc.
A croc of alligators. I would love it if that was the case, but it is not. Lovely to talk to you. Have yourself a cracking Christmas.
BBC WM 95.6.
Back on Monday morning, where we continue with the very secret 6 a.m. club.
Now, here's a story which tests the traditions and history of our armed forces. Should a soldier's widow lose her late husband's pension if she remarries? This week, the government rejected a call to change a rule which means a bereaved woman must give up her military pension if she finds a new husband. Campaigners claim the rule, which applies to some army pensions, breaks the military covenant, which sets out the nation's duty of care to the armed forces. But the coalition says after consultation, the long-standing principle should remain. So, question for you, dear listener, should widows have to choose between new love and their finances? Is it still the military and taxpayers' job to support a widow if she has a new relationship and a new life? I've got two guests on this. Major General John Moore-Bick is the General Secretary of the Forces Pension Society, and also Chrissy Fraser, whose husband Clive was a British officer with the Gurkhas, who died in August 2006. Good morning to both of you.
Hello, Ian. Good morning.
Chrissy, let's start with you first, if I can. Tell me a little bit about your husband.
Clive was a second Gurkha. Joined when he was very, very young into the army, and first of all he was a tanky, and then he went into the Gurkhas, and when he died in 2006 he was a lieutenant colonel. I married him in 1983.
Okay, so you married for a long time.
Yes.
He didn't die in action, did he?
No, he didn't. This is a myth regarding pensions. No, he didn't.
And I would imagine that your role as an army wife meant that you didn't really have much time for your own career or to establish your own income.
Absolutely. I would hope that people out there would understand this. As a civilian wife, if I can put it that way, you can build your pension pot, you can build your career. We are camp followers. We follow the drum. We can't build careers. I couldn't build a career in Brunei or Hong Kong. I had young children, and my career, I was Team Clive. We were building his career. That was my life.
So you couldn't build a career because you were moving all over the world?
Absolutely. And not only that, you move home. Moving home is one of the most stressful things in a family's life, in anybody's life. Try it 15 times, because I did it. And it's not easy to then make friends. You realize the army is your family. It is your life. It's what you do. You're passionate for it for your husband and for yourself. And he expects certain things from you.
So you, when Clive passed away, you thought that you would be getting his pension for the rest of your life, is that right?
Well, I made the assumption. I did what all of us don't do properly. I didn't read the small print, and it is very tiny print. You'd want to read some of those documents. I'm sure that the General understands this as well. I didn't read it properly. I didn't realise. And in the euphoria of remarriage, I lost it literally overnight. A call to a call centre in Glasgow. I was told, no, that's it, cheerio. I thought, well, thank you very much, writing off 20 years of my life, my commitment, and my love of my husband, and no respect or dignity towards him whatsoever. So here I am. Of course, I'm not a pauper. I'm not on the streets. But I've gone from being independent, confident, with that backup, with that respect to what I gave to the army and to my husband, absolutely wiped out. And here I am. What am I? I'm dependent, and I don't like it. I'm not the woman that my husband married. And that I lost my job as well. I could go into detail about that, but there you are. So ask away. Ask anything you like.
You're very kind. I appreciate that. Thank you.
By the way, thank you for Radio Midlands for allowing me to have a voice about this. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. It's a fascinating story, and it's one that I know people will be interested in. When did you marry again?
1983.
So, but you've married for a second time, have you?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I married for a second time in 2007.
Okay, and you found out from a call to a call centre in Glasgow that's...
Yes, I was under the assumption that my pension would continue, or a portion of it. That's how I saw it. That's what I thought. Because when Clive died, can you imagine the paperwork and the emotion? Then I met somebody else. I have to say, it was a whirlwind romance. I was a bit vulnerable, to say the least. But fortunately, he's a very nice, decent man, and took me on with my grown-up children, or grown-up-ish. And then I thought, I better check all this, being an honest ex-army wife, because that's what we do. And I made the call, and they said, absolutely not. We want your marriage certificate. We want to know exactly when did you move in with this man? Did you cohabit? We want every penny back that you might have had unwittingly, wrongly. Cheerio. And that's what I got. So thanks. And I've got nothing to lose by criticising this massive institution, all the government, all this woman, what's her name again, Anne, female, which is dreadful towards her gender. Thanks, Anne, for writing me off.
Let me play devil's advocate, Chrissy. I'm a little bit scared to, because you sound quite feisty.
No.
But I'm going to.
I'm feisty, but not stupid. Carry on.
Why shouldn't your new husband support you and your children?
Am I a Victorian? Are you calling me a camp follower, a Crimean war wife? That's so 19th century. Why should he be responsible for Clive's children? And children, that's an ongoing thing for parents now, as we all know in this time of austerity. And I was part of my husband's life. Being an army wife is unique. I know some of my army friends will be listening and picking up on this. They're all over the world, bless them. And many of them will be working in far-flung places, trying to make a home. It is an absolute cliche. We are keeping the home fires burning. All those girls now, where their men are in Afghanistan, it makes me so angry that we are to be dismissed. It was unique. I did so much more than if your husband is a banker or goes out to wherever and comes home, and of course you give him the natural support. But it is a unique way of life. I could list all the things I have here, but you're probably falling asleep by now.
No, far from it. I feel so sorry for the person in that call centre in Glasgow who had to tell you that you were getting your money.
Actually, she was like me. She was very blunt. And when I said that, is there any way around this? She said, absolutely not.
Stay there, Chrissy. I'll come back to you in a second. I want to speak to Major General John Morbick, General Secretary of the Forces. Well, you can say hello to him. He's here now.
Hello, Major
Good
General.
morning from Sussex. It's pouring with rain in Sussex. And Iain, I hope your listeners in the West Midlands will forgive my accent. I was born with a very thick Sussex accent, but life knocked it out of me.
Good for you. Well done. That's much better. John, what do you think about Chrissy's situation? Is it fair?
I think Chrissy's situation is very poor. But Iain, so far in this debate, you've talked about things in the past. You will have seen our press release saying bad tidings and no comfort or joy this Christmas or the next 40 Christmases. This is about the future. This will carry on for the next 40 years. And I'd like, if I may, to read out to your listeners the account of a widow last week who says, I was woken up by the MOD police knocking on my door. I had 4 officers in my house. One of them read me my rights and told me he was arresting me for 2 counts of fraud and 1 for money laundering. I was shocked to my core. I was taken by car to a police station where I was formally arrested, searched and booked in, then held in a cell. This is not a police state. This is Britain. She had not remarried. She was cohabiting.
Yes.
And our government makes honest people into cohabitees and such words. This is a disgrace. The British Legion put out a press release supporting us this week. The British Legion are really, in everybody's mind, the custodians of the covenant, and this is wrong, and the government needs to look again.
Let me ask you the same question, John, that I asked Chrissy. Chrissy sounds like a feisty, strong, independent woman. She can go and get a job, can't she? Why should the state continue to pay her pension, her husband's pension?
Well, it depends. It depends. Chrissy may be in a particular position, and actually, I think she has got a job. She has a part-time job, and she had a job.
I'm at work at the moment.
And lost it. But let's just see where many of these widows are. We're not talking about old people here. We're talking about some very young people who haven't got attributable pensions. Whatever their part of the service, they will endure turbulence which stops them from following a career or getting not just a job, but a consistent job. If they can get a job, it will be a lowly paid job.
That's right.
They are likely to have patchy national insurance contributions, so they won't get a full state pension. They won't get an occupational pension, and they won't be able to afford to get a private pension. So they end up in the worst of all positions.
Chrissy, how has this affected your life?
It has. It's on several levels, emotional and financial. Let me do the emotional. When I married my present husband, confident, I had a job. But by the way, getting a job at 64, for goodness sake, I know this government wants us to work till we're 95, but give me a break, will you? I actually have I'm a Saturday person. There you are. I work Saturday mornings. I'm lucky to have that. That few bits of money gives me some independence.
Are you telling me you're 64 years old?
Yes. I'm coming up to 65.
Oh, well, you don't sound anything like it. OK, carry on, sorry.
Well, I don't look too bad, but that goes against you, because I'm outside the norm, and people look and say, they anyway,
yes.
Moving swiftly on. The emotional side was awful, because my husband saw how stressed I was by that, because it diminished what I'd done. And I think one of the reasons he married me was, obviously, he fell in love with me, but the package is, at this age, because I married him when I was 58, what is in your past? I think that he admired that. And suddenly, I didn't have that extra money. He's earning, but I don't exactly go to him for handouts. That would be very denigrating towards him, because he's a good, generous, kind person. But it was lovely to know that I had that. And that money went for my children, for Clive's children. I will always be Clive's widow. I'm not, although I'm somebody else's wife now, this is a modern, contemporary marriage that I have. I'm not, do you see where I'm coming
yes,
from?
I do,
to understand? Yeah. And it did put stress on us, because I had taken out a mortgage based on that income. Stupidly now I look back, not a big mortgage, but enough, so that my children could live in a flat in London and launch their careers. And when the rug was pulled, when the Glaswegian said, that's it, can you imagine my horror? Because this husband, he didn't have the capacity. He could contribute, subsidise a bit here and there, but he couldn't pay another mortgage. So I was stuck with a mortgage where I was paying interest only, not the capital. It was the roof over my children's head. One of them wanted to move on in career, went back into education, and there I was left with a very small income. Suddenly my personal income depleted, and I lost my job. Which was devastating.
Chrissy,
so, now I'm 64, and it's tabula rasa. And this Anne, Miss Anne, thank you so much.
Chrissy, we have to end it there. We're running out of time. Thank you very much. Chrissy Fraser there, and Major General John Moore-Bick. Thank you both. Fascinating stuff. If you want to have your say on that, 08453 009956. Also taking your calls on the highlights and indeed the lowlights of 2013 for you. Drug abusers as magistrates, and are you ashamed of your accent? Well, apparently You should be.
Waking up the West Midlands with the latest news, sport, weather and travel updates. Pete Morgan at Breakfast is back Monday morning from 6.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
BBC WM 95.6.
Right, it's bang on 11 o'clock. Let's get the latest news now. Here's Rebecca Dixon.
On the 25th anniversary of the Lockerbie bombing, a West Midlands father whose daughter died in the terrorist attack has called on the government to hold an inquiry.
With no inquiry still, 25 years later, I think it's about time that our government came clean.
At 7:03 this evening, the names of the 270 people killed in the tragedy will be read aloud in Westminster Abbey. The family of the only man found guilty of carrying out the bombing, Abdel Basit al-Megrahi, say they're appealing against his conviction to clear his name. He died of cancer last year. Dr Jim Swire from Bromsgrove in Worcestershire has been speaking to Iain Lee on BBC WM. He says his daughter Flora is his inspiration for continuing to try to find out what happened that day.
She was looking then for truth in life, and to a great extent that's sustained me over the past 25 years, because that's exactly what I've been trying to do. Nothing else, nothing political, trying to find the truth about who really murdered them and why their lives were not protected in the face of all the warnings that had been received beforehand.
Some other stories we're following this morning. A woman has been seriously sexually assaulted in Birmingham city centre in the early hours of this morning. Police say they were called just after 4:40 a.m. this morning to claims that a 19-year-old had been sexually assaulted in Holloway Head. Part of the road is still closed this morning whilst forensic investigators examine the scene. A leading human rights barrister is calling for the law to be changed to give witnesses more protection in criminal trials. Geoffrey Robertson's comments come after Nigella Lawson complained that she'd been vilified during the trial of her two former personal assistants who were acquitted of fraud yesterday. Maura McGowan, who's chairwoman of the Bar Council, says giving witnesses the opportunity to question evidence would drag trials out for too long.
Having some act of bad character, whether it's criminal or bad behaviour, put to witnesses is actually very frequent. And you may see it happen with a number of different witnesses in the same case. You start on a sort of spiral whereby the first witness is represented, then the second witness is represented, and everybody's fighting their own corner.
The government has defended the Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt after criticism from the head of the Care Quality Commission. David Pryor told a newspaper it was crazy that Mr Hunt phoned the heads of hospital trusts, which didn't meet A&E targets. But the Department of Health has insisted Mr Hunt would not be doing his job if he was not in regular contact with hospitals. People in Warsaw are being reminded to take extra care to look after their presents in the run-up to Christmas. The Safer Warsaw Partnership have issued a number of simple tips to help reduce the chance of being burgled. Today's the shortest day of the year. Organisers are concerned that opportunist thieves will take advantage of the darkness to steal Christmas presents and other valuables. The advice includes things like using time switches and not talking about when you'll be away from home on social networks like Facebook. Councillor Zahid Ali is from Warsaw Council. He told us why it's important.
Many burglars are opportunists, so if people leave their windows open, burglars will take that opportunity and steal those Christmas presents, ruining the Christmas of many people. So we're encouraging people to take simple steps and to make sure that when they leave their homes, their lights are switched on. And don't forget, although emergency services are busy, so are criminals at this time of year.
A look at the weather, a windy day, some gales around later on this afternoon and some heavy showers around this evening. Highs of 12 degrees Celsius, 54 degrees Fahrenheit. Tonight, those heavy showers continuing on into the evening, but then it should be a largely dry but very windy night. Lows of 3 degrees Celsius, 37 degrees Fahrenheit. BBC WM 95.6 News. There's more online at bbc.co.uk/WM.
The Voice. The Voice.
The Voice.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
They have kids and they want somebody else to keep them.
Social services shouldn't exist.
I know quite a few people that have had pay cuts in their wages just to hang on to their job.
Iain Lee, Saturdays
9 till 12.
BBC WM 95.6.
Good morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC WM 95.6, the last hour of the show. before Daz takes over at midday. Lots to talk about. You can give us a call on all of the things we've been speaking about so far. You heard they're talking about widows' pensions, magistrates. Should we allow drug users and former criminals to be magistrates? Are you ashamed of your accent? You should be. If you've got a strong black country accent, shame on you. You should be getting rid of it. That's according to one expert. Coming up in this hour, the whole Nigella Lawson case. Now, she wasn't on trial, but if you looked at the front pages of the newspapers this week, you would think that she was. Do you have any sympathy for Nigella Lawson? She's had all her dirty washing aired in public. We've heard things about her that I'm sure she would rather have been kept private. What do you think? Have you got sympathy for her, or do you think actually what we have heard, the facts that she has tried cocaine and cannabis, illegal drugs, that actually you've lost a little bit of respect for her? 08453 009956 is the telephone number. You can email ian.lee@bbc.co.uk.
Have your say.
Across the West Midlands, call 08453 009956.
BBC WM 95.6.
Now, one leading think tank has called for drug abusers and criminals to be allowed to become magistrates. So they would decide on people's sentencing, on people's community service, on fines. They could take away your driving licences. They could send you to prison. Would you like that? The more I think about this, the more I hear about this, the more it sounds to me like a cracking idea. Yes. Let's allow drug abusers, let's allow criminals to act as magistrates, to be responsible for sentencing, because they will have an empathy with the people stood in front of them that the white, middle-aged, middle-class magistrates, that's what they comprise of primarily, an empathy that they could never understand. 08453 009956. It's a hard one to disagree with if you think about it, if you really do think about it. It's a tough one to pick holes in, isn't it? Annette's in Cradley Heath. What do you think, Annette?
I agree with you, Ian. Good morning.
Good morning.
My son's a recovered alcoholic. He calls himself a non-drinker now. He was a chronic alcoholic who went into rehabilitation in Liverpool. He's now training to be a drug and alcohol worker. But I can't think of people any better than those that have lived that. They know more about it than anybody else. They do recover. They can do anything they want to do when they've recovered. They're just people who have gone down the wrong path.
How bad was it for your son at its worst?
It was extremely bad. He almost died. He drank. I've got two children, and they're chalk and cheese. They're both great kids. He just went down that wrong path. I don't know the reason why. It wasn't a dysfunctional family or anything like that. He just got in with people who drank a lot, and he must have been weak, and it got hold of him. He lost his job. He became depressed. His girlfriend threw him out, and we had him with us. And he was at rock bottom. And he reached that rock bottom, and during that rock bottom, he said, I want to change my life. And he has. He went into rehab. He's been through the programme. He now lives independently in Liverpool, and he works as a volunteer in a rehab unit while he's studying.
How long has he been sober for?
23 months.
Oh, fantastic. Well, well done him. Good work. And as a mum, watching your boy go through that, because there's nothing you can do, is there? How are you feeling?
Well, I was almost the one that was put into a mental institution because of it. If it hadn't have been for Al-Anon, where I still attend every Tuesday...
That's an organisation that helps family members, doesn't it, who've got alcoholic people in their family?
Yes, it is. And that's the thing that was my saviour, really. And I still go and get support from them. And lots of people whose alcoholics have recovered, they still attend. They still attend because you do need your own recovery from it. when you're trying to, trying to stop them drinking is the wrong thing. They have to do it for themselves, and that's the only way. But for them to be magistrates, I think they would be absolutely fantastic at it, really.
And Annette, very quickly, I've noticed you've got a bit of an accent. Are you ashamed of your accent?
No, I want to talk to you about accents
Go on.
also. I'm a Birmingham person, and I live in Cradley Heath now, which is the Black Country. And I think people should be proud of their accents. As long as they speak correctly, they're taught in school how to read, write. It's just the slang that lets people down with all accents. And there isn't any need to say, I eat and do it, and all of this, and in it, because that is just laziness. That isn't the English language. So the lady who had the Geordie accent, I don't agree with her.
Annette, we have to leave it there because I'm running out of time. I've got so much to squeeze in before now midday. Thank you very much. 08453 009956. We've got a couple of lines free. Now's an excellent time to give me a call. And you'll probably want to have your say on this. Big news story. The TV chef, Nigella Lawson, has declared her disappointment but not shock at the verdict reached by a jury in London yesterday that 2 former personal assistants were not found guilty of fraud. Francesca and Elisabetta Grillo were found not guilty of wrongly using a credit card that belonged to Nigella's ex-husband, Charles Saatchi, to buy goods worth almost £700,000. The 2-week-long trial saw Ms Lawson admit to taking cocaine. The cookers described the court proceedings as a ridiculous sideshow of false allegations, which made focusing on the actual criminal case impossible. Do you have any sympathy for Nigella? Do you feel sorry for her? Do you think this will damage her? Or do you think, well, hang on, she's admitted to doing something illegal, lost all respect for her? 08453 009956. Jasmine Montgomery is the chief executive of the brands consultancy 7 Brands. Good morning to you, Jasmine.
Good morning.
Has this damaged Nigella Lawson, do you think, and her brand?
Well, it certainly could have. It really had the potential to damage her, but I think that actually, in the long run, she will rise to even greater heights because she's handled it so magnificently. She turned up at court just so dressed for the part, like she had her armour on. She was, brilliantly made up, brilliantly, sort of wardrobed, and she just really stood her own in court under cross-examination, which is very hard. She was smart, she was witty. So I think in the long run, actually, people will really respect the way she's handled herself. And she stayed largely out of the media spotlight and tried to be very dignified, and I think that will serve her well.
She has admitted to breaking the law, though, to taking a Class A drug.
Yes, but I think it comes down to how seriously do we take our cupcakes. If she were a politician or, super nanny or something, this would be very serious. But, she's a cook, she's a TV celebrity. I think we're all grown up enough to realise that celebrities often have colourful backstories. And her brand is one that has naughtiness baked into it. So I don't think we have high expectations of, really strict behaviour from her.
Well, it's a sexual innuendo naughtiness, isn't it? And I'm thinking perhaps more of in the States where she's trying to break the States, and they do take allegations or admissions of drug use very seriously over there.
Indeed, and the US consumers are generally far more puritanical on all fronts, so I think brand Nigella will have to change hugely for the US, and in that sense this could be a downside, but I think by and large it will buy her media exposure, which is really, a huge thing when you're trying to break into a new market. But she will have to redefine brand Nigella for the US market, major less on sauciness and have to kind of think of something else for her, to her brand to stand for.
She's come out, hasn't she, saying that she thinks the legal system should be changed, that it's unfair. It sounds like sour grapes, doesn't it? Just because the court case didn't go the way she wanted it to.
Well, I don't think she was either the main person bringing the court case on her own, nor was she, the person being prosecuted. I think that's important to remember. She was just a witness.
Yep.
She has maintained, I think, quite a lot of dignity throughout this sort of divorce. The media have been dying for her to say something, and she finally has. And I think that actually the narrative that's come out of this, of her having struggled through a difficult divorce, with somebody kind of, the sort of persecution that she feels she's faced, will make for a narrative about a kind of strong, independent, tough woman going through tough times and handling it very gracefully. And that's a narrative that I think will appeal to her target market here in the US, who may themselves deal with difficult husbands and difficult divorces. So I think that her sort of strength through all of this will shine through and will appeal to people.
Finally, what does she need to do now, Jasmine? Does she need to keep quiet, or does she need to do a kind of Piers Morgan Life Stories interview and give her side of things?
Well, she's intending to do that in the States. She's going to be on Oprah. And Oprah is kind of the cornerstone of anybody's comeback campaign in the US.
Yep.
So that's planned for the US. I think in the UK, she can probably have a soft landing and rely on the huge equity she's built up in the UK. The massive affection people have for her, I think, will carry her through this in Britain.
Jasmine, thanks very much for that. Jasmine Montgomery, Chief Executive of the brands consultancy 7 Brands. What do you think about Nigella? She has admitted to taking cocaine, to breaking the law. Do you think any less of her for that? The police aren't going to pursue charges against her. Does that seem fair? Middle-class millionaire-ess, not... It's almost like they've condoned this. 08453 009956. Do you have sympathy for Team Nigella? Do you think she was badly done by, or do you think that no, we had a right to hear what was aired in court? 08453 009956. This is Iain Lee, BBC WM 95.6. It's 11:15. It's time now to get the latest travel news. Here's Liz Saul.
Thank you very much, Ian. There's problems on the motorways now. The M42 going north has 2 lanes shut because of a vehicle which has caught fire. This between junction 8 and 9, the M6 and the M6 toll and Coes Hill exit. Congestion is back to the other M6 interchange. It's lanes 1 and 2 which have been closed. Traffic's queuing, approaching and passing the scene. The M6 itself has a lane out because of an accident between 8 and 9, the M5 to the Wednesbury turn. That's causing congestion back to 7 at the A34. The accident has happened in lane 3, which is closed, and further along the northbound M6 is slow between 12 and 13. Now, there are some roadworks around there, so that could be the reason for the congestion. But if you are heading for the Stoke game, Villa fans, this afternoon, just be mindful of that extra congestion all along the M6 going north currently. Wolves fans are going to Rotherham. It's not too bad along the A38, bit busy out of town as you head towards the Spaghetti Junction, but further along seems to be okay, and no particular delays on the M1. In Birmingham, the A38 Bristol Road South has been shut both ways. Police dealing with an incident at Lickey Road on the roundabout, so between Bourneville College and Lickey Road, and that's causing some congestion. Rather congested around the shopping centres this afternoon, indeed this morning. It's already looking busy on the main streets around the Bullring and also as you head to Merry Hill. In Cradley Heath, Woods Lane is shut because the level crossing isn't working at the Forge Lane turn, the A4100. If you can update us, 08453 002288.
We wish you a Merry Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho.
The best thing about Christmas is have a big turkey dinner or chicken or beef, I don't know. The whole atmosphere of it's really exciting.
In my opinion, I think I've been a very good girl this year.
Being a little bit patient with my sister, even though she's very annoying. No, I am not. Sometimes I admit I've been a teeny bit shouty. Everyone makes mistakes, like
the Queen. She makes mistakes sometimes.
Happy Christmas from BBC WM 95.6.
It sits uncomfortably with me. It's Merry Christmas. It's one of my bugbears. We don't say Happy Christmas, we say Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Sing the song. The clue's in the song, guys. It really, if people say, oh, Happy Christmas... Ooh, I really have to... My wife, if my wife is with me, she kind of holds onto my arm so that I don't say, no, actually, I'm sending that back to you. It's Merry Christmas. I have to kind of rein myself in. Right, the last 40-odd minutes of the show before Daz Hale at midday. So if you want to give me a call now is probably the best time to do it. 08453 009956. Lots to talk about. Have you got sympathy for Nigella Lawson? She's called for a reform in the legal system because of the way that she feels she was treated in court. Dirty Laundry was aired. Or do you think, well, hang on, she's a rich woman who took drugs. I've got no sympathy for her at all. 08453 009956. We're also talking about magistrates. We're also asking for your highs and lows. Whenever people do big roundups of the year, they always talk about Nelson Mandela or Margaret Thatcher, all these huge things that have happened. And you can talk about those if you want. But one of the great things about doing a local radio show, a phone-in show, is I get to hear your stories, your highs and lows of the year. What made 2013 so brilliant or so awful for you? Two things for me. My youngest had to have an operation. His bladder was wired up wrongly. It was horrible. They had to disconnect his kidney from his bladder and then reconnect. Oh, dearie me. It was a real worry. First 6 months of the year, a real worry. Had the operation. He's pretty much fine. Gets a final scan in January, and if he's fine, he can come off the antibiotics. Wonderful, wonderful. Such a relief. And also my eldest in his school uniform. Oh, broke my heart, his little cap. I mean, he looks scruffy when he wears it now, but the first time, oh, wonderful. Your highs and lows of 2013, please. 08453 00 9956. Keith's in Northfield. Good morning, Keith.
Morning.
Keith, what are your highs and lows?
Well, my low was in February. I found out I got prostate cancer.
Oh, mate.
And my high is 4 weeks ago. I'm winning. I'm beating it.
Tell me what it felt like when you got that diagnosis.
Oh, how can I put it? I sat here and just, well, I'll tell you the truth, I just cried my eyes out. But, you know, I'm a fighter and I like having fun in my life and all that lot, so I've just fought along with it with the help of the hospital and my friends and family. Yeah.
And so what's the latest then, Keith? Where are you exactly with it?
Well, I started off. Did you have a PSA test? And it was 8.9. It's a blood test. It's down to 2.7. So in other words, the cancer's slowly going away.
Fantastic. That must be an amazing feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm doing everything they tell me to do. Yeah, so hopefully this time next year I might phone you up and say it's clear, but I've got to keep an eye on it.
Keith, listen, have a fantastic Christmas. That's certainly something to celebrate, and I'll speak to you in a year. That's a date. 08453 00 9956. Your highs and your lows of 2013, please. What made the year so special? Or let's be honest, a real stinker for you. I would say mine generally has been pretty good. The first few months of 2014 are going to be tough. But I would say 2013, saying that, I lost my dad as well 2013, so that was pretty awful. 08453 00 9956. Hey, have you got a strong accent, black country or otherwise? Well, you should be ashamed of yourself if you have. You should speak proper like what I do. It's not necessarily what I think, but it's certainly what our elocutionist told us earlier on in the show. Cliff's in Tipton. Morning, Cliff.
Good morning, Ian. It's nice to talk to you again, kid.
Oh, Cliff, you'll never get anywhere with a voice like that, mate.
Well, I've managed all right so far, and I took your retirement 2 years ago, and I wouldn't say I'm very comfortable, but I'm not too badly off. But you see, the thing is, although I had a father who came from the black country, my mother was Welsh, and she insisted that I speak correctly. And my dad said, he's going to speak black country, and my mother used to say, no, he's not. He's going to speak properly, otherwise no one's going to understand him. And I've got Scottish ancestry as well, so I'm quite a...
Oh, my granddad...
mongrel.
My granddad Jock was from Aberdeen, OK?
Yes.
And when I was 5 or 6, I could not understand a word he said. He had this really thick Aberdeen accent, but also he liked to drink. So he'd be drunk, speaking with this really thick accent, and I would sit there and just nod and fill in the gaps, and then run out crying to my mum and dad going, I can't understand what Grandad's saying.
We've got somebody here from Aberdeen and we can't understand him either.
He's
a Scottish Terrier.
Oh, what?
He's a Scottie.
Yeah, well, I thought for a second I thought you said a Scottish terrorist. I thought, what on earth is that?
Well, he is a terrorist, I must admit. Can I just say something about Nigella?
Of course you can, Cliff. Go on. You got any sympathy for her?
I share your view about her. My other half used to watch her cooking show, and I often wondered why she kept smiling all the time. And now I know she must have been taken...
Well, no, Cliff. Naughty. I get that was a gag, of course, but we have to be very, very careful with that. Nigella has confessed to taking cocaine, I think twice, possibly, but there's no We have no evidence that it goes beyond that. So, Cliff, I appreciate the gag, and I also appreciate that you appreciate that I have to appreciate the law. Thank you very much indeed. 08453 00 9956. I've never been a huge Nigella fan. I think I do feel a bit sorry for her because, listen, we've all got skeletons in our cupboard, haven't we? Skeletons. We've all had a history. We've all done things in the past. But, I mean, we don't want them aired in public, do we? Really? 08453 00 9956 is the telephone number if you want to give us a call. You can also give me a call about your accent. If you've got an accent, if you've got a strong accent, then shame on you. Shame on you. You'll never achieve anything in life. You'll never get anywhere. You need to abandon it and speak proper like what I do. Dot's in Selly Oak. Morning, Dot.
Good morning. How are you, Ian?
I can barely understand a word you're saying, Dot.
Oh, really?
What a thick accent.
I know, and I'm so proud of it.
Are you proud? Tell me why.
Well, why shouldn't I be proud of it? I've had some of my war memoirs published. I've had poetry published. And why would I want to try and change who I am?
So you've been successful despite your accent?
I wouldn't say despite.
Yeah.
No. I mean, now you take Cameron, for instance. Yes, please take him.
Thank you.
But don't bring him back.
Yes.
Now, he's a posh boy.
Yeah.
But he's not a professor. But Carl Chin is. Carl Chin hasn't changed.
No.
Cameron won't always be a Prime Minister.
Can you imagine, though, Dot...
But... Carl Chin will always be a professor.
Yeah. Can you imagine, though,
Go ahead.
a Brummie Prime Minister or a Brummie Chancellor giving out the budget?
Do you know, I think that would really go home to the people that have got a grievance. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
You think that would make politicians a bit more human?
I think they would go more to the... what can I say? I won't say to the likes of me, because that's putting everybody in wrong. But I spend quite a bit of time in Stratford, and there are some snobs in Stratford, believe you me.
I can well believe it,
Honestly,
yes.
they are. But when we used to stay at my sister and myself, we stay at this hotel. But when I pay my bill, my money is received like their money.
But you could have more money, Dot, if you didn't
Why?
speak like that. That's according to some of the experts.
But why? What do they know about me? They don't know about my intelligence.
No. But I guess the thing is they don't know about your intelligence, but we all make snap judgments. We all look at people and we make judgments, rightly or wrongly, based on our previous experience. And we also do the same with accents, don't we?
Exactly. But that is wrong. In my way of thinking, that is wrong. You should not do that.
But it's a human nature. You can't stop it, can you?
No,
you can't turn that off.
No, but it doesn't stop that from being wrong. I don't understand why people... Why would I want to change me?
By the way, I have to stress, I am a huge fan of regional accents, and I think that regional accents are I think they make this country wonderful. That I think there's a different accent every 25 miles as you travel through the country.
Exactly. You know, you're talking about this... I think someone mentioned about... Someone says in it. I've heard kids in Bourneville, coming out of Bourneville School, say, what do you think? Where have you going? What month? What month is it? But they're not black country children. They're born here in Bourneville. But they still speak like that. They still say, in it. I thought we was going here. I think, to be quite honest, Ian, I think it doesn't matter what your accent is. I think the the kids are idle. They don't end the words.
Oh no! Hang on, no, don't start knocking the kids now, saying they're too lazy to finish words.
I'm not saying that at all. I love the kids. I did 17 years voluntary work with kids, so I know.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to say, Adrian.
I wish.
Sorry.
Yeah, go on. No, don't apologise. It's a compliment.
But
spit it out, Doc. Spit it out. Come on.
They don't. I can hear broadcasters and on the television. They say, "How long has it been since you were so and so?" No, it's not been. It's been.
Dot, thank you very much. I know what you're saying. One of the things I do, and I've noticed them doing this on Radio 4. Goner. Later on, we're going to be speaking to... Later on in the show, I'm going to be out on the street. Instead of I'm going to... It should be later on. We'll be going to speak to. No one says that anymore. 08453 00 9956. Norma's in Willenhall. Morning, Norma.
Good morning.
Norma, are you proud of your accent, or would you like to get rid of it?
No. Why should I? I've worked hard in the Black Country. I've been a nurse, a health visitor, and I've worked in a factory surgery, which is now gone, which was Sankey's. And that's where I found the best people, was when I went to Sankey's, the Black Country people. They're wonderful. They give you the shoes from their feet.
We spoke to Sharon Collins earlier on, who's an elocutionist and voice coach, and she says that accent is heritage and it's beautiful, but, Norma, if you want a good job, an important job, a well-paid job, you need to get rid of that accent and speak proper English.
Do you think?
Well, that's what Sharon says.
Oh, well, I'm sorry for Sharon. You see, Black Country is a mongrel accent because we had people coming in, didn't we?
Yeah.
From Ireland, Wales. My family were all from Wales, and from all over the place. And the accent evolved, didn't it, over the years, you say? But I do Black Country poetry, and I have done a poem, which is this one.
Oh, hang on. Whoa, hang on a second. This wasn't flagged up. You were going to read a poem live on the radio.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
All right.
Listen. If it's rubbish,
well, you say so.
Well, no, I will cut you off, and we'll never mention it again. Okay.
All right. That's very polite. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I'm not a huge fan of poetry on the radio. It never works. But just this once, because it's Christmas, we'll let you have a start.
Oh, that's very obliging.
Thank you very much. I'm a nice guy.
Just because I've a Black Country accent doesn't mean that I haven't a brain, or that I lack civilised manners, or deserve treating with your disdain. Yes, because of a Black Country accent, don't think I'm intellectually starved. I appreciate music and culture, and from very good stock I've been carved. So don't judge a book by its cover, and don't judge a man by his sound. Look deeply, and you will discover that my character is quite profound.
Norma, thank you very much indeed. That's the first and indeed the last time I will ever allow a poem to be read on a radio show that I am presenting. Norma, thank you very much indeed. 08453 00. Don't all start phoning up with poems now. Why have the phones gone mad? Are people phoning up with their own poems? No. 08453 00 9956. Mavis is in Coventry. Good morning, Mavis.
Good morning.
Do you know? I don't want to be rude to Norma there, but poems on the radio.
I wouldn't put my poems on.
No, they don't. Unless you're Pam Ayres, they don't really work, do they?
No, they don't actually. I'll be perfectly frank. I mean, I like hearing other people, professional people, but no, I think you've got to be very careful.
You have to be very careful
right.
these days. Go
you
on,
were
what have you got?
talking about being people being proud of something.
Yes.
Back. Well, I was very proud of my youngest son, who's in his 50s, and went to university, had a very good job, and decided that he wanted to go in for the ministry, which he did. So in June, he was ordained in Winchester Cathedral, and he's now a deacon in a parish in Hampshire, and will go on to be a curate.
So this we're asking what's made or broken your 2013. So one of the highlights of your year is your son becoming ordained.
Yes. Yes.
What made him make that decision? Because that's a huge lifestyle change, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you see, my husband, my late husband, died 5 years ago, and both my sons. The other one lives up north. They both done very well. The fact is that the youngest son hadn't any children. The other one's got 4, and I've got a great-granddaughter. But the fact was that when my husband died, I think my youngest son felt very lost because both the boys were very close to the father. Yeah. The other one had got children, so of course it helps. And I said to my daughter-in-law, because they visit on a regular basis when they can, And I said, you'll have to do something about your husband. I don't believe in interfering in marriages at all. And I said, because I've seen my dad have a nervous breakdown through overwork, etc. And if you don't watch it, he's going to go the same way. She said, do you really think so? I said, yes. Next thing I knew, and unfortunately his father never found out because he started training then, working as well, and training at weekends at a theological college to be a priest.
Wow.
And I think, to me, I feel very proud of him because it's not easy to change direction at that late age.
How old is he?
He was born I have to work this out.
Hang on, we can do this. I've got
55.
He's 55
He
years
was born in 1955.
Oh, OK. So hang on. He's
that makes him 58.
17, 60 minus carry 3, minus 2. If you carry that over... 58!
Yeah, I just said that.
Oh, did you? Sorry, I was lost in my own mental arithmetic.
Yeah, no, you were doing your mental arithmetic.
I was doing my maths.
Yeah, but of course, you see, I mean, you have to train for quite a long time before, and then before a bishop and everything. And actually, where he is in the parish in Hampshire, the vicar there is very, very good because he takes him along to baptisms, etc., etc. And when he thinks that my son is ready, he puts him to do whatever.
Well, good for him. You must. So that's been the highlight of the year for you, has it?
Yes, it is.
Well
because
done.
it's not easy for anybody to change direction.
No.
And he actually, to me, because they came up to see me and took me out to lunch this week, and to me he's happy. He's doing something. He's achieving something.
Has he got a strong accent like yours, Mavis? Because if he has, no one will understand him in the church.
No, he hasn't.
Oh, good. Well, that's something.
No, but do you know what mine is?
It sounds like a mess.
Sorry?
It's confusing to work out exactly what it is.
Herefordshire.
Is it?
Yes. I was born in Warwickshire, brought up in Herefordshire, and there are two people here where I live who obviously, either they've lived there, they know it. Two people said to me, I can tell where you come from, we've been brought up.
Well, Mavis, listen, I appreciate your call. Thank you. Well done for your son. 08453 009956. Cracking call. We're looking for your highlights and your lowlights of the year. You always get these end-of-year kind of look back at 2013, and they're always the big news stories, and you know it's going to be Mandela, Margaret Thatcher, that terrible thing that happened in Woolwich, and probably Nigella. That's the main thing. We can talk about those if you want between now and 12. I'd rather get your stories, your personal highlights, your personal lowlights of the year. What made your life so good in 2013, and what, let's be honest, made it so bad? My dad passed away in February. Oh, man alive, what a start to the year. 08453 009956. On the subject of accents, it's Millie in Kingshurst. Morning, Millie.
Hello, Ian.
Hello,
yes,
Millie.
Accents. In the late 40s, I was sent to a boarding school in Oswestry Street, Shropshire.
Yeah.
And they all spoke terribly nicely. Well, of course, I had a Brummy accent. My life was made a hell with the other girls at the school. Now, a teacher at another school I went to after that came from Wolverhampton, but she spoke very nicely. But she had a friend from Wolverhampton who used to come on the school outings and so forth with this lady. And she had a very, very broad black country accent. And the girls at school were absolutely awful to that poor woman.
In what way?
Well, they giggled about it and spoke loudly enough for her to hear about her accent.
Oh, dear.
But I think now, in this day and age, that accents don't really matter. And I think people are less critical about it.
Well, are they, though? Because we all make... I was just thinking that the Somerset accent, the West Country accent, or we talk like that, don't they?
Oh, they're lovely.
Well, it's lovely, but we do... Don't we think when we hear that accent, and I'm gonna be honest here, don't we think that person sounds a little bit, well, thick?
No.
Really? The Cornish accent, don't we think they sound a bit stupid?
No. I don't judge people by their accent.
But we all do make snap decisions and judgments about people. When we see someone, on their looks, we make a decision, and on their voices, we make a decision, don't we?
I think so, but personally, I'd rather judge a person by the sort of person they are.
And you're right to do that, but it's hard not to make that initial decision on...
I suppose it is in a way, but I don't know. Actually, this morning it's been very interesting, and I was dead against magistrates being ex-criminals or whatever.
Yeah.
But the more I've listened...
Makes sense, doesn't it?
The more I can think that they are at a level with people, they understand people.
Yeah.
And they understand their difficulties, rather than some highfalutin person who is not on the ordinary person's level.
Millie, I appreciate your call, and thank you for listening. And that seems to be the thing with this story of magistrates. If you just tuned in, the thing we were talking about was a think tank has argued that former drug abusers and former criminals should be allowed to become magistrates. At first listen, it sounds like an awful idea. But the more I think about it, and it would appear the more you think about it this morning, because we've had several calls saying what Millie just said then, the more you think about it, it does make sense. They have a real empathy. They'll be able to understand and know what's got them out of the ruts in their life, and they'll be able to recommend that to other people. Look, we've got the last 20 minutes of the show. Daz is going to pop in at some point as well, I'm sure, to tell us what's happening on his show. If you want to give me a call, I would do it now, to be honest. 08453 00 9956. Chris is in Walsall on the subject of accents. Morning, Chris.
How do you do?
Sorry?
How do you do?
I beg your pudding?
How do you do?
That's better. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine.
What?
Mark Wilkinson, Timothy Spall, well-known actors, Shakespearean actors.
I'm getting every fifth word out of this.
Right, but what are they known as? Either Brummy Barry from Off With Design.
Yes, yeah.
Or Mark Wilkinson, We Want to Be Together.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, it's a unique accent.
But both those characters you mention, they're kind of seen as comedy, stupid characters, aren't they?
Well, not really.
Brummy Barry from Our Feelings Ain't Pet is.
I mean, really, you've also got Benny from Crossroads and Amy Turtle.
Oh, for goodness sakes, you're really not doing your accent any favours by bringing out the Benny from Crossroads.
And we're also called Yams.
Yes.
Because Yam always talking like that.
Yeah,
I mean, like Gloria Gaynor, I am what I am. I mean, like, you know, a liberation song.
Yes, I don't think she's referring to you.
Oh,
I think
yes, she is. Before the time, mate.
Okay, Chris, thank you very much. He's doing his argument no favours by bringing up Benny from Crossroads. Yeah, I'm old enough to know who Benny from Crossroads is. It doesn't paint the best image, does it, Ben? Miss Diane. 08453 00 9956. Janet's in West Bromwich. Morning, Janet.
Hello.
Janet, what are your highlights or lowlights of 2013?
My very, 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 very low light.
Oh, go on.
November the 20th, it was my husband's birthday. We were going out for a meal to celebrate.
Yep.
Sister held up in traffic, went round to pick my son and daughter-in-law up, and thought my husband was staying in the car.
Yes.
But he wasn't in the car, and he wasn't following me, and there he had collapsed on the pavement.
Oh, no, what had happened?
Well, he broke his neck. My husband's never done anything by halves. He's always made a good job of everything.
He's a show-off, is he? He's one of those.
Oh,
Dearie me. So how did he break his neck? Did he slip over?
Well, I don't think we shall ever know what actually happened, because if he tripped, you automatically put your arms out, don't you, to save yourself, and he didn't. But anyway, to cut a long story short, he was taken to our local hospital, Sandwell. He was then transferred over to QA, had several contraptions put on his head, which didn't work. And so then he had invasive 6-hour operation 3 weeks ago to put a screw into his neck to hold the vertebrae in position. Hopefully the spinal cord will stabilise. And to tell you the truth, over the last 3 weeks, the use has come back into his legs, into his arms.
Oh.
He's working on his hands.
Fantastic.
But what I've really, really rung is to thank everyone who has prayed hard for us, who has given us support. And when I mean everyone, people that I've known years ago, it's got on the grapevine sort of thing, and they've rung and given me their support and their thoughts and their prayers. And basically, I just want to thank everyone, because he's helped both Brian Brian and I, and now Brian is on the road to recovery. He's still wearing this terrible...
I was going to say, Janet, is he still kind of laid up? Can he not move at all?
Oh, no, he can move now, and I'm getting him out to... He used to play, well, he still will do, he will do, he will play indoor bowls 4 times a week.
Because I'm getting the feeling, has he not just timed this so he can have a really lazy Christmas and get you to look after him for the whole... Janet, get me some more Brussels sprouts, please. I can't move. Get me some more cake.
It could be that way. But no, we always go to my son and daughter-in-law's anyway.
Okay.
So.
What a worry. Don't let him... Listen, when he plays bowls, make sure you keep an eye on him. Don't let him do anything silly again.
Oh, no.
You must be so relieved, though, that it looks like the operations are working and he's coming back.
Well, yes, he's going to go for a scan in January. You hear him, he just shouted he's back on his feet.
Good for you. Take it easy.
Remain positive.
Remain positive. Well, Janet, a terrible story, but I'm glad it's having a happy ending.
Yes, that's lovely. Have a lovely Christmas and a happy New Year to everyone.
Janet, thank you very much indeed. There you go. Wow. What a story. 15 minutes of the show left if you want to give me a call. 08453 009956. Barry, stay there. I will speak to you in a second. It is 11:45, though. I need to get the latest travel. And let's get it from Liz Saul. Liz.
Thank you very much, Ian. Still problems on the motorways. The M42 going north is queuing from that vehicle which caught fire earlier, but the good news is it has been recovered off the carriageway between 8 and 9. The M6 and the M6 toll and lanes 1 and 2 have reopened, but there's still an awful lot of congestion and slow traffic back towards 7A at the other M6 interchange. The M6 itself is struggling to clear from an accident earlier, although that has been moved from the carriageway now between 8 and 9. The M5 to the Wednesbury turn still queues back past 7, which is the A34 at Great Bar. Lane 3 it was that was closed. In the centre of Birmingham, the A38 is still shut both ways. A load of roof panels have fallen into the road on the A38 between Longbridge Lane and Lickey Road. So it's caused a bit of a problem. Obviously, it's come off the roof and it's unsafe at Bourneville College. So that's causing congestion back to Low Hill Lane. And as you make your way around Wolvie, reportedly this accident on Lutterworth Road at Temple Hill. In Brockton, Paul Lane is still shut because of a vehicle which overturned early this morning at Brockton Road. And the M5 is heavy going north between Junction 1 at West Bromwich and the M6 interchange. Your match day travel sees Villa fans heading to Stoke up the M6, which is looking rather patchy and congested. Not helped by that accident, of course, earlier on, but 12 to 13 is also rather heavy going, and it's struggling 15 to 16 around the Stoke exits. Wolves fans are going to Rotherham. That's going to take you about 2 hours via the A38 and the M1, both looking OK. If you can update us, 08453 002288.
Villa, Wolves, Blues,
Tamworth, Walsall football news,
signing, sackings,
gossip, rumour,
and exclusive interviews.
Phone-ins, rantings.
Back the board. Did you see the one he scored?
Call now.
Do your best to get that offside off your chest.
Live matches from the ground.
Commentaries with perfect sound.
Every goal and every save.
On FM, not just medium wave.
The voice.
The voice.
The voice. The voice.
The voice.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country. BBC WM 95.6.
Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC WM 95.6 here every Saturday between 9 and 12, except next Saturday. Oh, give me a Christmas break, please. For goodness sakes, please. The last 12, 13 minutes of the show now is a cracking time to give me a phone call. 08459 no, hang on a second. That's my... oh, hang on a second. What number's that, guys? 08453. Thank you very much. 009956. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you. Barry's in Tamworth. Morning, Barry.
Morning, Ian.
Barry, you've called him about Nigella Lawson.
That's right.
You got any sympathy for her?
Well, yes, in some ways I do, because basically this case was supposed to have been about fraud. 2 sisters allegedly defrauding...
well, yes, they've been found not guilty, but yes, that was the case, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I think the whole case was a bit of a fraud. Because it was more to do with their personality and her husband's personality. He didn't come into the picture so much as she did. But at the end of the day, I was watching that Lucan on television this week, and at one stage when the Lucan's defence barrister started to call into question his wife Veronica's state of mind, the judge immediately altered proceedings, cleared the courtroom, and then set about the two barristers saying this is not about personality.
Well,
this
yes.
is about
The thing with the thing about the Nigella case is you're not allowed to kind of throw muck at someone like that unless you get a special dispensation from the judge, and the lawyers did get that because of the email that Charles Saatchi sent to Nigella Lawson saying, "Oh, I always knew it. You were off your face on drugs," or something like that. The defendant's lawyers were allowed to. I can't remember the exact term, but they had special rights that they could do that. You think that was unfair, do you?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was about, of course, about fraud. Like, I mean, you never heard nothing about the two sisters, did you? It was all about this Nigella. I mean, it just... I mean, why didn't that... I mean, the judge should have, said, right, let's start, and get to the bottom of this and get what the proceedings in hand like. It just smacked of hypocrisy. It was just stupid. Like, I can't understand how it was like to go on like
Barry,
that.
she's confessed to taking cocaine, an illegal Class A drug. Do you think any differently of her?
Well, no, not really. She ain't doing anybody any harm. It's, live and let live. I mean, lots of people, in London, like the high-profile people, these high-flying bankers and hedge fund managers, all these other people, allegedly they're all supposed to be doing this. I mean, it's nobody harm, is it?
Well, it's interesting you say that. Do you think that she's perhaps being... The police aren't going to press charges on her confessions. Do you think that she's being treated because she's a beautiful millionaire white woman? If she was some oik from a council estate, it would be looked at slightly differently, wouldn't it?
Well, I don't know, because all I'm talking about is this case, but I mean, not necessarily. I mean, because if it was a person from a council estate, I mean, it wouldn't even met the national. It might make a local newspaper, but not a national. Probably on page about 10 or 11, like in about a couple of paragraphs. I mean, it's such an high-profile person, but I think she was dealt with in a rather... But I mean, at the end of the day, Nigella Lawson herself, like, I mean, we're not only worlds apart, we're planets apart. I mean, even a planet on another galaxy, not a planet on this galaxy. But, I mean, that's not to say that... she should be treated like she was treated. I think it was rather unfair.
Barry, just going off on a slight tangent, do you ever think that your accent has held you back in life?
No, I've never even thought about it. I mean, you take it for what you are, ain't you? That's, if what you are is what you are. I mean, why should you...
Well, that's...
I mean... Sorry, I'll tell you what, Ian, sometimes what I hear is when people go on the phone, right, and they sort of change the tone of the voice.
Yes.
And I think that's horrible, like, you know what I mean? Just be what you are, right?
My mum's got a phone voice. Her phone voice is very, very posh.
Yeah, and it's horrible. And I mean, I've worked with some people, like, I've been and I've heard some, the people that have got on the phone, like, and I find it so yucky and embarrassing, like, you know what I mean? I just have to walk away, like, because I can't stand to hear it, like.
Barry, thank you very much indeed. 08453 009956. We've got 2 lines free, so if you want to call up, now is a cracking time to do it. Hey, listen, Keith Middleton tonight, the best in 70s and 80s music and guests, Christmas jukebox. He's also got Jimmy Osmond on, who's not so little anymore. He's massive, Jimmy Osmond. You've seen the size of him? He'll be popping up to tell you about his Christmas #1 at the age of 9 back in 1972. Do you know how old I was back in 1972? 0. I was 0 years old. I was not even thought of then. I would have. Oh, actually, no, I would have been on the way. And also in Call Keith, he wants to know what is it that makes you all Christmassy. You can call him from 10 o'clock tonight. That's Keith Middleton, 10 p.m. this Saturday for more late night fun and indeed frolics. Who wouldn't want some late night frolics? Chance to be a fine thing. Vic's in Kimber. Morning, Vic.
Morning.
Vic, what do you... Oh, my goodness. That's a thick accent you've got there, sir.
Yeah, it's just a comment regarding dialects and so forth.
Go on.
Now, I'm quite an elderly old man, but I recall during the war in 1940 joining a young soldiers battalion at a place called Barton under Needwood. And it was composed mainly of Staffordshire lads. and there were 30 of us all together in a platoon. Now, this is how it happened to go. An officer walked round between the 3 ranks of 10, had a few words with each one, and at the end of his short inspection, he said, now, these boys, and he read 4 names out, he said, will be able to put a white flash behind their cap badge.
Oh.
This signifies that they are chosen for officer training course.
Yes.
So the 4 boys that he chosen were all happened to be public school boys with beautiful speaking voice.
Of course.
So what I'm saying is that he didn't know the qualities that they had. He'd chosen them purely and simply on the way they spoke.
Now, that's not fair, but that's how the world works, isn't it? We do make those assumptions and those judgments.
What I just wanted to say was the finest thing anyone in education can... I was in education until I retired, but the finest thing anyone can do for their youngsters to teach them to speak properly. It's far more beneficial than teaching them how to use a file or a hacksaw or something like that. Teach them how to speak properly, because when they go for an interview, it doesn't matter how good they are, their accent is taken into account, I always believe.
Vic, thank you very much indeed. 08453 009956. Now, a gentleman who's got a... Well, you've got an accent, haven't you, Daz?
Just a bit. Hey, I tell you what, Benny's just been on from Crossroads. He still hasn't found that spanner.
That's what you went off on. I can't believe that someone is to promote the Black Country accent has used Benny from Crossroads as an example.
Well, there have been. I mean, he mentioned Mark Williams there, who was at the Symphony Hall at the Ed Doolan show the other day. Lovely fella, and
yeah.
you know, from the Fast Show, We Want to Be Together. But you know, I suppose if you think about broadcasting, then. For instance, one of the most famous radio broadcasters, Terry Wogan. Yeah. He had an accent. Ken Bruce, who's been on forever, he's got an accent.
But both very soft.
Yeah.
They're soft, acceptable accents, aren't they? They're they're not the hardcore, it's not a hard Irish accent that Wogan's got, or a hard Scotch accent for Bruce.
I'll tell you the one.
Yeah.
Cilla Black. Have you ever heard a Scouser talk like that? She's a professional Scouser who loves Liverpool so much. She's lived in Surrey for the past 45 years.
She's a plastic Scouser.
Apparently she knew the Beatles, you know. She may have mentioned it at some point in her career.
She should talk about that a little bit more often,
Well,
I
exactly.
think.
No,
Really?
shining a light under a butter.
Daz, what is happening on your show today?
I'm glad you asked me that. Yeah, from midday...
I'm contractually obliged to.
We've got early kick-off. Building up to all of today's big games. Obviously, we've got Villa, Albion, Blues, Walsall and Wolves all in action. So we're going to put together a dream team today of footballers with a Christmas or wintry theme to their name.
I say.
And already, for instance, on Twitter, Roque Santa Cruz, who's played for Blackburn Rovers and Manchester City, so that sort of thing.
I'll take your word for it, yes.
OK. And also today as well, great wingers as we get towards Christmas today, because Nottingham Forest being linked with Bakary Sakho again of Wolves. So who have been the great wingers that you've seen play over the years? And if anyone ever did see Stanley Matthews, because my dad did, and everyone, tell me just how good was Stanley Matthews?
See, now this is why I like accents. I'm a big fan of accents. Wingers. You've really got that hard G in the middle of their wingers.
Yeah, bath or bath? Shower.
Daz, have a great time. Have a great Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
See you later on. Thank you very much indeed. Now, speaking of accents, one of the reasons that we're talking about accents is, have you heard of the Black Country Nativity? Well, if you haven't, it's the rewritten story of Jesus' birth, but with the vowels and slang of the Black Country. Yeah, I know. I like things like this. So to give you a little taster of what it is, and you can find out more about it online, to give you a little taster, some of our news team here at BBC WM have performed the opening lines for us. Now, bear in mind, last night was the BBC WM 95.6 Christmas party. And you should see the state of some of the people who have turned up this morning. For goodness sakes, you youngsters, you've got no idea. You've got no idea. So their voices may sound a little bit ropey, but here are some of the news team from BBC WM with the Black Country Nativity.
There was this wench called Mary, and her lived in a place called Nazareth. One day, her mum went out, and her was left to do the housework. All of a sudden, the room went all bright, and when I turned round, I saw someone standing by the window. I weren't half surprised and nearly fell off a chair.
You day half give me a turn.
Don't be scared. I won't hurt you. My name's Gabriel, and I'm an angel.
I am, yeah?
I am, and I've come to tell you summit. You're going to have a baby.
Don't be daft. I ain't married.
That don't make any difference, love. If God says you'll have a baby, you'll have a baby, and that's it. And you've got to name him Jesus.
Well, if you say so, I suppose that's it. I can't do anything about it, but me chap won't half be surprised.
Boston.
Man alive, I want to hear the whole thing. That's what Radio 4 should be broadcasting on Christmas morn, for goodness sakes. They should be playing something like that. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. That was super. I don't think we're allowed to call Mary, the mother of Jesus, a wench. I just got a feeling there might be one or two complaints about that. Excellent stuff. Thank you very much indeed. Emma, thank you very much for all of your help producing and putting this nonsense together. Thank you for all of your calls as well. It's much appreciated. I'm having next week off. Please don't hate me for it, but I'll be back in January. Have a fantastic Christmas. Enjoy yourselves, have lots of fun, and I will speak to you in 2014. Until then, from me, ta-ta.
Waking up the West Midlands with the latest news, sport, weather and travel updates. Pete Morgan at Breakfast is back Monday morning from 6.
The voice of Birmingham and the Black Country.
BBC WM 95.6.
Next then, we start building up to all of today's big games with all the big match banter in early kick-off. But first, on BBC WM 95.6 at midday, here with the news is Rebecca Dixon.
On the